Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of November 21st, 2016. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Sony, do you want to go ahead?
Okay. First item of business, immediately prior to the regular city council meeting, the Board of Equalization will convene to discuss the assessments as shown below. We have an election of chair.
Was moved that Larry and Gaylor Baird serve as chair.
Second?
Moved by Carl, second by Roy. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, in accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the chamber. Each year, the Lincoln City Council passes a number of improvement district ordinances. Today's districts include the Downtown Business Improvement District, the Downtown Core Business Improvement District Overlay, the Downtown Maintenance Improvement District, the West Haymarket Downtown Maintenance Business Improvement District, the West Haymarket Downtown Management Business Improvement District, and the West Haymarket Downtown Core Management Business Improvement District, whose land is benefited by the proposed improvement. These districts encompass the management activities performed through and contracted by the Downtown Lincoln Association. Once these projects have been completed, the cost is paid by the city through its Special Assessment Revolving Fund. It is then necessary for the city to recoup its cost from the benefited property owners and reimburse its revolving fund. These costs or assessments are computed by the Urban Development Department and presented to the City Council for its review when sitting as the Board of Equalization, as we are now. The clerk will read each district individually from the printed agenda, and after the district is read, a representative from the Urban Development Department will come forward and make a brief statement about the district. And after that, anyone who wishes to make a statement may come forward. Please, when you do, come forward, state your name and address before making any comments. Thank you.
Item 1, Downtown Business Improvement District, generally bounded by H, 6th, R, and 17th Streets. Item 2, Core Business Improvement District Overlay, generally bounded by Centennial Mall, M, 9th, and Q Streets. Item 3, Downtown Maintenance District, extending from 7th Street on the west to 17th Street on the east, and from R Street on the north to M Street on the south, including the properties abutting on the west side of 7th Street from N Street to R Street, the east side of 17th Street from Q Street to M Street, the north side of R Street from 7th Street to 10th Street, the south side of M Street from 8th Street to 17th Street, both sides of 13th Street from M Street to Lincoln Mall, and all of the Cornhusker Square. Item 4, West Haymarket Downtown Maintenance Business Improvement District, generally bounded by the west line of Outlet C, West Haymarket addition from approximately K Street on the south, north to N Street, and continuing north along the center line of Pinnacle Arena Drive to approximately 9th and 10th Streets, south to R Street, west to 7th Street, south to O Street, east to 8th Street, south to the alley south of N Street, and west to the east line of Outlet C, West Haymarket addition. Item 5, West Haymarket Downtown Management Business Improvement District, generally bounded by Pinnacle Arena Drive on the west and north, North 10th Street on the east, and Q and R and N Street on the south. Item 6, West Haymarket Downtown Core Management Business Improvement District Overlay, generally bounded by Pinnacle Arena Drive on the west and north, North 8th and North 9th Streets on the east, and O and N Streets on the south.
Ron Kane with the Urban Development Department, and I am the staff person that prepared the proposed assessments before you this evening. And these assessments cover the time period September 1 of 2015 to August 31 of 2016. I am here to try and answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council? All right, thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak to these items? If you do, please come forward. All right, I guess you're all here for something else. All right. I guess, Sony, can you go ahead and call the roll?
Yes,
we
move
need a
to
motion.
vote.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
I'll move items 1 through 6.
Second.
Moved by Trent and seconded by Roy. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Madam Chair, I move adjournment sine die.
Second?
Moved by John and seconded by Trent. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Camp,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, we'll now move into the regular meeting of the City Council. In accordance with LB 898 and Open Meetings Act, a copy of that is in the back of the room. And the order of the business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call all items listed on the agenda under public hearing, and anyone who wishes to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those who are opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating his or her name, address, and whether or not you're speaking in favor of or opposed to an item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and as a reminder, we have a timer that will sound after 4 minutes. If there is a large number of you wanting to speak on a particular item, and if you decide you'd like to have a representative express your views collectively, you're more than welcome to do that and then ask others to stand. But we also welcome individual testimony. It's your preference. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on an issue not on the agenda for this date, nor planned for a future agenda. Agendas are located outside the entrance to the chambers. And Sony, would you please call the first item of business?
Yes. First, we have an announcement. Due to Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day holidays, the City Council will not meet on Monday, November 28th, Monday, December 26th, and Monday, January 2nd of 2017. First item of business would be the consent agenda, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Moved by Roy, seconded by Carl. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Christensen?
Sorry,
Oh.
my apologies.
Yep.
Is there anyone who would like to speak to any of the items on our consent agenda? All right, now you can call the roll.
Christensen.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. That ends our consent agenda. Moving on to our public hearing liquor resolutions. I'll be calling items 19 and 20 together. Application of City of Lincoln Holmes Golf Course for a Class C liquor license at 3701 South 70th Street, and the related manager application of Scott D. Carlson. Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Okay, please tell us your names and why you're here.
Good afternoon. Lynn Johnson with Lincoln Parks and Recreation. I am the Director of the Parks and Recreation Department. The City of Lincoln is applying for a liquor license for Holmes Golf Course. The reason that we're applying for that liquor license is the operation at Holmes is different from the other three 18-hole courses. The other three 18-hole courses, we contract with managers. The managers at those locations hold the liquor licenses, and they also retain all of the revenue from the alcohol sales at those properties. At Holmes Golf Course, the city retains the revenue. We contract with Mr. Carlson for operation of the course, but all of the proceeds from the sale of alcohol and other merchandise, beverages, food items at the golf course come to the City of Lincoln. So in this instance, the city has an interest in holding that liquor license, and the reason is that way we assure that there's continuity in that liquor license and that we don't have a gap in the liquor license, which could result in a gap of revenue coming to the city. So that's the reason that we're here before you this afternoon.
And my name is Scott Carlson. I am a golf pro manager at Holmes Golf Course, and I'm here to represent the manager position as under the liquor license.
Okay. Any questions? John?
Yes, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Carlson, how, in the past, I've taken exception to having alcohol licenses at the golf courses. They enjoy tax-free status versus the private sector, and to have the alcohol has been one of the distinguishing factors between the city golf courses and the private sector, and it just seems like we keep coming back to this and more, and help me out on the justification other than you just want to get finances for it.
Councilman Camp, that probably is the primary reason, that we are looking at all revenue sources that can come to the program that help support it. And in this instance, the revenue that comes from alcohol sales as well as other food, beverage, and merchandise sales do help support the operation of the program. At the other courses, the city pays a management fee to the three golf professionals, but a portion of the compensation that they receive is as a result of the food and beverage, the merchandise that they sell there. So it's an important, the revenue that comes from alcohol sales is an important part of the overall revenue that helps support the Lincoln Municipal Golf Program.
Can you limit it to just beer and wine and not go with the hard alcohol?
We've applied for a Class C license. A majority of the sales are beer at the courses, but we are requesting it, and historically we have had spirits available at the courses as well. It's a smaller portion of the sales, but it is a full-service operation that we do operate.
It hasn't been historical, really, as you've had the full service. It's been just in the last couple of years, as I recall, because we didn't allow that for quite a while.
Yeah, as you say, this has been an evolutionary process that for a number of years, alcohol was not allowed on the courses, and then it was allowed for special events, and then, I'm trying to think, it's probably been 12, 13 years ago that the city allowed alcohol in the courses full-time, both in the clubhouses and on the courses. And really the reason, as you indicated, has primarily been financial, that the intent to try to attract play, but also to generate additional revenue to help support the program.
Yeah, I'd really like to leave the camel in the zoo's tent and not yours tent. So, okay.
Cindy?
Thank you. Can you tell me if there's a violation by someone serving at the golf course, who receives that violation? Is it the city then?
Depends on the violation. And really, there are multiple levels of responsibility. So each one of the individuals at the course who are serving alcohol, they have to have a server's license. If they make a mistake and they serve somebody who shouldn't be served, it's against their license. There's also responsibility associated with monitoring consumption, also how the alcohol is acquired and managed. Mr. Carlson would be responsible for that.
Even though he doesn't hold the liquor license?
The city does hold the liquor license. Mr. Carlson would hold a manager's license, and then each one of the individuals who are actually doing the serving would have server's permits.
And at the other locations, the other golf courses, who is cited, who receives citations for if you have a minor who's being served or that type of a violation that you just mentioned?
It's a similar situation there. The golf professionals hold the license at those courses. Anybody who's serving has a server's permit. And it really depends on the violation as to who ends up ultimately being responsible.
Okay, so I guess I don't entirely understand why the golf professional in this case isn't asking for the license and the city is.
It's really because we contract with Mr. Carlson for the services. If something were to happen and Mr. Carlson were to discontinue that contract, we'd have a gap, and it would take a period of time to get a liquor license back in place. And potentially during that gap, we would not be able to sell alcohol potentially. And so we would be losing out on revenue. And so really, the city holding the liquor license at Holmes Golf Course assures that there is continuity of that liquor license during the entire tenure of the license. And so,
I guess, isn't that the same contract that we hold? I mean, couldn't that be true of any of the other golf courses?
the distinguishing factor is that at Holmes, the revenue comes to the city. At the other courses, the revenue goes directly to the golf professionals. So at the other courses, if there was a disruption, it would affect the golf professionals' revenue and not the city's revenue. So at Holmes, we want to make sure that we have the ability to assure that there is continuity of the liquor license and then the revenue that would be associated with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Roy and then Carl?
So first, this is different. We just determined that this is different than the other courses. Is this a model for what we might do in the future for other courses?
I think it depends on what happens with the revenue, because a year ago, we had an ongoing conversation with a community committee about all of the revenue streams that come into the overall golf program. And one of the things that that committee recommended was that we take a look at the golf professional contracts in the future. The sale from food and beverage, particularly alcohol, is a significant revenue source. If the city at some point wanted to have a portion of that revenue, I guess my recommendation would be that we may want to look at this same model, because we probably do want to have some protection of, or some assurance of that ongoing revenue source coming in.
Okay, talk to us all about the boundaries of this liquor license. Is it in the entire golf course or just the clubhouse?
It's the entire golf course, because there are carts that are out on the course, beverage carts out on the course that are selling alcohol. We will be posting signage at the walkway that goes to the parking lot that indicates that alcohol is not allowed beyond that point. And we also have information that are posted at the course that individuals are not supposed to be bringing their own alcohol onto the course.
So that begs the question to me, are we creating a conflict of interest where Lincoln police officers enforce liquor ordinances within the city? Is the city going to be enforcing, the LPD going to be enforcing liquor laws on city golf courses? And does that not create just a conflict right there?
It's a good question. LPD and the state will be responsible for overseeing the license. And so if there was a violation or if there were concerns, certainly they would direct them to either Scott or I, and we would address those.
Carl?
Yeah, Lynn, the reason why the Holmes Clubhouse is different from the other three clubhouses, could you explain just why we're in a little different situation here?
Yeah, I certainly can. There was public bond financing that was utilized to pay for that clubhouse. IRS regulations don't allow for a private individual or a private business to generate revenue directly from that clubhouse. So we can contract for management services and we can pay for management services, but the manager can't derive any revenue directly from the sale of merchandise, food, beverage. So in this instance, the revenue has to come to the city, and then we pay a management fee. And that is very different than the other three clubhouses.
And before we built the new clubhouse at Holmes, it was the old way. It was, we paid the pro or the pro got the receipts from the alcohol sale, just as the other three courses do. So it's just something in terms of when this, as long as this bond issue is present, and how I can't remember how long the bond is for.
Bond gets paid off in 2021, and then we can look at the operating model at that point.
Great, thank you.
John?
So based on what Mr. Eskers just asked you, we've been violating the bond because the bond's been in place. The clubhouse was finished a couple of years ago.
It has been, but we have not been in violation. The difference between what we're proposing to do now and what we had done previously, the prior about 3 seasons, was that the golf manager, we required that the golf manager hold the liquor license, and similar to the other courses. But in evaluating that, we did have a concern that if something were to happen and we had a discontinuation of service with that manager, we could potentially have a discontinuation of the license. And there could be then a break during which we would not be able to sell alcohol or serve alcohol at the course. So we have been in compliance, but this provides essentially greater belts and suspenders for the city to assure ongoing continuity.
Roy, then Cindy?
Does the city have any other liquor licenses?
No, this is the first time. This is essentially, this is groundbreaking occurrence, to be perfectly honest.
So there's nothing in that, having that bond that precludes us from having the manager hold a liquor license. You're just saying because we can't pay him based on the amount of liquor that's sold out there.
Yeah, he can't have, for example, a percentage of these sales can't go to the manager. We have to pay him a specified management fee, which is what we do.
Okay, and so we are paying him correctly, we're not in violation. If he held, there's nothing about him holding a liquor license that would keep that from being true.
That's correct. And it really is just that question about continuity.
Okay.
The city holding it assures that there's continuity of that liquor license over time.
Thank you.
Lynn, is there any financial implication of a cessation of the liquor license if it were to stop and then have to be reapplied for? Is there a cost to the city Can you speak to that?
There is, and Conan Schaefer is here, and he may be able to speak better to the time frame, but it's my understanding that it could take up to 6 weeks to get a liquor license back in place. And so if we were to have a discontinuation or a break in the liquor license occurs, for example, in June, we would lose a significant amount of revenue if it took us 6 weeks to get a liquor license back in place. We'd essentially lose much of the revenue generated from alcohol sales during the summer period. And I can provide the council, if you're interested, the total revenues that come in from alcohol sales. I don't have those numbers at my fingertips tonight.
All right, thank you. Well, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this item? No? Okay, thank you very much. Please call the next item.
I'll be calling items 21 and 22 together. But just for a memo, there are new and additional agendas out front, so if any of those from the public do not have an agenda, they're available out at the front podium. Items 21 and 22, application of Super Bogey, the Dutch Uncle for a Class C liquor license at 317 South 11th Street, Suite A, and the related manager application of Jason L. Hutchinson.
Welcome. You can go ahead and fill that out afterwards if you want to just tell us your name and address verbally. Thank you.
Jason Hutchison, 4221 South 32nd, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Can you tell us a little bit about your application, please?
I have the oath.
Oh,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes. Okay. Hi. So we've kind of noticed some growth in the 11th Street district, and we own Jake Cigars. And we just thought that that area could use some people that kind of know what's going on and kind of help foster that growth and be a positive role model over there. So that's why we're applying for this license.
any questions from the council? All right, thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Please call the next item.
I'll be calling items 23 and 24 together. Application of Ichiban Szechuan for a Class I liquor license at 151 North 8th Street, Suite 100, and the related manager application of Jason C. Dion.
Jason DeYoung, 151 North 8th Street, Suite 100, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Can you please tell us a little about your application?
Yes, I am the representative manager for Ichiban
Can you
Szechuan.
speak into that? Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm the representative and the manager for Ichiban Szechuan, and the company just took over Dozo Sushi, and we just opened about 3 days ago, and business has been crazy, and which is good. So in that sense, we would like to actually continue to actually operate as the Asian fusion and also Szechuan food, and that's why we are applying for a liquor license.
Okay, any questions? Cindy?
I have a comment. I've already heard great things about you guys.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's pretty quick, right? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, please call the next item. Oh,
I was just going to mention, we have about 14 seats available up in front,
oh, yeah.
if you want to just do the walk.
All right, please call the next item, Sonny. Is that on Monday? Is it? Okay.
I'll be calling items 25 and 26 together. Application of Legends Patio Grill and Bar for a Class CK liquor license at 801 R Street, Suite 100, and the related manager application of James A. Locke.
Hello.
Nick Saldi at 1403 North 181st Street, Elkhorn, Nebraska 68022.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Welcome. Please tell us a little about your application.
Sure. The Legends Patio Grill and Bar, we've had a location in Omaha for just over 12 years. It'll be 13 in February. And we are taking over the old Flatwater spot at 801 R Street. Done some work on the inside and opened just about a week ago. Things are going great as well. and looking forward to being part of the Haymarket.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, please call the next item, Sony.
Item 27 is the manager application of Kristen A. Albertus for Dempsey Lincoln Inc., doing business as Dempsey's Burger Pub at 228 North 12th Street, Suite 100. The applicant notified us and withdrew the application itself. No action is required. Next item I have is item 28, manager application of Christopher J. Moore for Granite City Restaurants, doing business as Granite City Food and Brewery at 6200 O Street.
Good evening. Christopher Moore, 7749 South 28th Street, 68516.
Welcome. Tell us a little bit about your application, please.
Oh, I have the other.
Oh,
Do you
sorry.
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes, I do.
Hi.
We are moving our operations just directly to the west of our old operation. Because of the new address that we are given, we had to apply for a new liquor license, and I will also be taking over the day-to-day operations of this establishment.
Any questions, Cindy?
Are you open yet?
No, we pushed back a little bit, but we're looking for a December opening.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the council? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? All right, please call the next item.
Item 29, manager applications of Brian D. Hexel for Chipotle Mexican Grill. For the Chipotle Mexican Grill at 2801 Pine Lake Road, 1317 Q Street, Suite 100, and 6005 Q Street, Suite A.
Hello. I'm Robert Markoff. I'm representing Brian D. Hexel, and yeah, my address 5211 Seward Street, Omaha, Nebraska.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to tell us what you're doing here today?
Yeah, I'm just here to get the liquor license for Chipotle Mexican Grill. I mean, we have them throughout the whole city already, and we just needed these 2 locations to finally build some revenue in that aspect of the job.
Okay. Any questions, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, what's your position with Chipotle?
I'm the manager. I'm like the up-and-coming manager for him. I'm his apprentice in a sense. Brian D. Hexel, that's on the list. I'm his up-and-coming apprentice. He's on
Manager in
vacation.
training?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Well, like field leader in training kind of sense. Yeah, he's on vacation, so he needed me to come here.
Where did he go? We need to know
I'm
that.
jealous. He's in Thailand. He's in Thailand right now, so I'm jealous of him.
Thank you. Just want to make sure he wasn't at Disneyland.
No,
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? All right.
Madam Chair, I would,
Could I ask one thing?
yes.
It's kind of out of order. Is the gentleman still here from Legends?
Are you wanting
Could-
to
I
reopen
had-
that
wait,
item? Or
I just had a question, may I? So should I move to reopen the public hearing on that? I suppose it'd be.
We haven't voted on
Yeah,
anything.
I guess we haven't,
Just
yeah.
good. I just.
Okay, and
Is
what
that okay if
item
I-
number is that, John?
That was, number 26 and 25.
25,
Yes.
26?
And Mr. Locke, correct?
No, I'm Nick Salby.
Oh, you're next, oh, that's even better. We have a police report here on history of you and your partner, James.
Mhm.
Could you address the DUIs you've had in the last couple of years? Each of you has had a DUI, and I guess having a liquor license
Sure,
that
yeah,
concerns us.
it's been a few years, but I was actually attending, you just want the situation of what happened?
I guess looking for assurance that that's not going to impact or
Sure.
impair your
Sure,
restaurant.
yeah, it wasn't anything of me being at a restaurant. I was at a auxiliary dinner for Creighton Allegiant Health, attending with my mom, and it was one of those deals where, everything was part of the fundraiser, and, my family and I had some drinks and made a bad decision to drive home, and no accidents, nothing, just completely cooperated, and,
Okay. And I see it was listed as a misdemeanor. Now, your brother had one, you had yours in May of 14, his was January of 13. And do you-
I was in Phoenix at the time. I wouldn't be comfortable to sit in front of you and tell you the story. But again, I don't think it was anything, no accidents. I know that there was no accidents, nothing like that.
Okay, well, as you can appreciate,
And
we
he
just want to see it's
wasn't talking, yeah,
responsible
sure.
management ownership of
Sure.
facilities. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I
Well,
appreciate that.
I don't know if my colleagues have any
Any
questions.
other questions?
Okay, thank you very much for coming back.
All right, Madam Chair, I would move approval of items 19 through 26 and 28 and 29.
Second.
Discussion?
And Madam Chair, I'd ask that items 19 and 20 be separated for vote.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to disaggregate items 19 and 20 from the remaining items.
And I think that's just by right, I can do that.
Okay. All right.
And,
Let's take 19 and 20 first. They're first on the list.
And if I may, I can't support these two. This is the measure for alcohol at Holmes Lake, and especially with the city getting the license. For many years, I've just really had a concern that we've got municipal golf courses, we've got private golf courses, and the private courses pay property taxes. And if you put the city at competition with the private sector by having all the same abilities of liquor sales and so forth, to me, that makes it an uneven playing field. And then secondly, I'm also concerned that the city now wants to get its first ever liquor permit. And so I might be satisfied if we just had beer and wine, and I don't think the city should be in that business, though, of selling alcohol. So I'm going to vote against these two items.
Roy?
I can't support these items because I think we've created a conflict of interest between the Lincoln Police Department and Parks and Rec Department. And I don't have any assurances or a good feeling that that enforcement could take place without influence from other parts of city government.
Cindy?
I too am concerned about the conflicts of interest. I just want to make clear, though, that I wouldn't necessarily object to the manager application, but I don't think that's appropriate without having the liquor license placed. So that's my position.
Carl?
I think what was clear is that the Holmes Clubhouse really is a different situation here, and the need for this in order to have alcohol continually available to the patrons who utilize Holmes Park is important, and that's why this really is being done. Once the clubhouse is paid for, the bond's paid off, then this requirement would go away, and it presumably would go back to the same way that the other courses are and have been for many, many, many years.
I have a staff question then.
Okay, Royce wants, for Lynn?
Lynn,
Okay.
when does the bond expire?
2021.
Okay, Cindy?
And just to be clear, the other golf courses, like, it would be similar to the other golf courses if this manager held the liquor license and it wouldn't violate the bond, correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
And so if the contracts with the other golf courses, if those managers were to move on, again, we would be potentially faced with what you're talking about now, a gap in liquor.
That is correct, yeah. If one of the existing golf professionals that we have contracted at one of the other three 18-hole courses chose to leave, there could be a gap there in the ability to serve alcohol at those courses. The difference is that it wouldn't have a financial impact on the city directly. It would really affect.
But it would have an impact potentially on the patrons, just not on us.
Correct, yeah. That service would not be available potentially.
Thank you.
Before we vote, I just want to point out that if this vote does go against the city, then it would automatically go to the State Liquor Control Commission, correct?
I think that is correct, yes.
Lynn, the council has allowed the Parks Department and the Parks Foundation to have fundraisers on Parks property that involve alcohol. Does LPD police those events? Are they responsible, or is there some private security that you hired separately to do that?
We do not. The way that those events work is that the Parks Foundation hires a caterer with a liquor license. And all of those events, whenever alcohol is served, is by a caterer with a liquor license. That caterer is responsible for monitoring consumption, and we've never had any issues with it. But
But LPD enforces
they do,
liquor laws?
yeah.
Okay.
Those applications are reviewed by LPD.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further questions for staff? All right, so we've had the motion to disaggregate. We've disaggregated 19 and 20, and you want to go ahead?
And I'm hearing maybe Cindy's thinking one way on one of them and another way on the other one, so I don't know if we should have 19 and 20 separate. Is that?
Maybe 19.
Thank you. No, that's really not the case, because I don't think it's appropriate to have a manager without having the license. But I was saying that when I'm voting on 20, it's just because I would disapprove of 19. So if they were placing the liquor license with him, that would be different. I just wanted him to know it wasn't anything to do with him.
Okay, any further discussion on this item with council? Now that we've had staff questions. All right. I guess I would just add that I think reasonable people can disagree about alcohol and its appropriateness on city property. The concerns I heard you raise had to do with not having alcohol, period, but this doesn't necessarily stop that. This just means that it's being managed through a private contractor as opposed to the city having the license. And with regard to the conflict of interest between LPD and the Parks Department, it seems like we already have situations where LPD is enforcing our liquor laws with regards to parties on park property. So I'm not sure that we'd be consistent if we opposed this for those reasons. And then you add the financial impact on the city, where we have a little bit more of a risk of having a cessation of revenues coming in needed to fund the departments.
I will disagree with you on that point, because we've been told that the city has never had a liquor license. That's the issue. When the LPD enforces statutes against a liquor license holder, in no case in the past has the city ever been the license holder. This will be a first on that, and that's where the conflict arises.
I'd like Jeff to speak to that. Let's go ahead and let John speak first.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, there's that point. Yeah, we've had like a foundation or the Children's Zoo Foundation, or somebody has hosted the Children's Museum. So, yeah, Roy is correct on that regard. And, we talk about the Holmes Lake, or the Holmes Park Golf house there, the clubhouse. I mean, I was concerned on that to begin with when that came about years ago, because that was openly in a competition with the private sector. And here we're opening it where there is this would provide not only the city having the permit, but it would then really put on full playing field the golf courses, the public ones, the municipal ones, competing with the private ones, and it's just an unequal playing field. And so I've always maintained that there needs to be some difference there, and maybe the difference is just beer and wine, but I just have a fundamental difference there, that we shouldn't be allowing a tax-exempt authority to compete unnecessarily with tax-paying entities. So there are several issues here, and I think, from the city holding it, and so forth. So yes, we've had a few times a year where the zoo or the Children's Museum has had a temporary permit, but it has been hosted by a different organization other than the city.
Jeff, could you come up?
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney.
Could you advise us on whether or not it's a conflict of interest for LPD to enforce the liquor license regulations on a city department?
I wouldn't view it as a conflict of interest from the standpoint of what I think our expectation is that the Lincoln Police Department is going to enforce the laws regardless of who the laws are being enforced against. For example, if I have a few drinks and drive home tonight, I would expect that a citation would be issued regardless of the fact that I, as city attorney, work with the police department. I understand Councilman Christensen's point that there is a financial concern as far as the Parks Department is making money off of the liquor if they hold the liquor license. And so there could be that appearance, but I would, I guess, represent that I expect that the Lincoln Police Department is going to enforce the laws regardless of who they're enforcing the laws against. And there's no direct financial benefit to the police department on whether or not Holmes Golf Course makes money or not.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Am I calling the roll for 19 and 20?
Yes, we're taking them separately.
Okay.
We voted to separate them?
Well, no,
Did- I
19,
thought you
20
didn't want to.
together.
Together, okay.
So we are taking a vote for both.
Yes.
Okay. Christensen,
No.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
No.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp.
No.
Motion carried, 4-3.
All right, please call the next item. We are voting now. We've had a motion to look at items 21 through 26 and 28 and 29. Discussion on these items? All right, please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Tony, do you want to take us to public
Yes.
resolutions? Public hearing for resolutions?
That ends our public hearing for liquor resolutions. Next is public hearing resolutions, item 30. Amending the fiscal year 16-17 CIP to authorize the appropriate $1,700,000 in TIF funds for the Haymarket Street and Streetscape project.
Members of the City Council, David Landis, Urban Development Department Director and the applicant in this case. We're asking for an amendment to the CIP for 16-17 to allow us to plan and design and then execute a significant set of work in the sidewalks and walkways of the Haymarket area. The boundary for the area is essentially 7th and 8th Street, although it actually goes as far as 9th, from N to S. There are a dozen more locations in there where curbs and pavers have not settled well, and there's now gaps between the two. For example, this 2-inch gap along a curb and the bricks. That has created an uncomfortable walking condition. We've had a couple of people trip, but it's also just something that on a busy day, and if you're not looking down, you might miss. It's not the kinds of conditions that, if they were to be built today, would meet the ADA standards. They are grandfathered, so they're not in compliance, but they are not the standards that we would normally have for the ADA. The amount of money necessary to do the full project is $1,700,000. We are doing work in the Haymarket on the streets. There are conditions in the street that require milling and overlay. These are some of those kinds of conditions on the streets. And that's being scheduled for 2018. This would allow us to do the work sympathetically with that schedule, perhaps under one contract for the best possible prices, but certainly to avoid any chance of having to do work a second time. The money that we collect comes from 3 blocks in the Haymarket district. They're part of a district that continues for the next 5 years. That is a district that produces about $270,000 of resources per year. And so that will essentially be the source of the funds necessary to do this. What we have done to make sure that we don't have significant risks are temporary repairs. Temporary repairs that probably have a shelf life of about 2 years. So they actually fit with the scheduling that we're looking for the ultimate solution to the project. And these would be replaced ultimately with the new design that we would use, likely to use either concrete pavers or brick pavers. but they would be on a concrete base. If there's one thing that has created more difficulty than anything else, it's because this work, which is now 20 years old or older, was done on sand. And over time, that produced variations in surface levels, and those have been exacerbated over the conditions of the 20 years. We now know how to do this and do it well. In fact, we've done it well. There are bricks in the walkway in a couple of the streets, and they have been laid on concrete, and those have been there for 10 years, and they don't produce any of the results that are like what we see in this area. So that's the goal of the amendment to the CIP, and I'd be happy to answer questions from the council.
Cindy?
Thank you. Can you tell me how these are TIF funds? Isn't it the city doing this work?
They are. The money comes from private property whose valuations have grown over the last 10 years in a district that includes 3 blocks in the downtown area. So it's tax increment financing to the extent that it's money collected on private property valuations.
Okay, but so it's right now it's the city's money?
We have some of that money in our possession now, and we are doing some work against it. When all the work and those resources pan out and come to an end, we should be left with about $300,000 of existing resources. Every year, because of the growth of valuation in those 3 blocks, there's $270,000 of tax increment per year. And that will include 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So with the resources that will ultimately filter out with what we have now, and the taxes that we'll be collecting on those 3 blocks for the next 5 years, you have the money to do the project.
So are we having to borrow to do this project?
We'll do it in this way. Because you have to have the money up front to pay for the work to be done, and it's done in sort of partway through that 5-year period, we'll have the resources that will shake out of what we have now. We'll have 2 years of increment, but we will need to upfront money, and we'll do that by doing a small TIF project, and it's an interfund borrowing from other places, pots of money that the city owns. We'll use that money, and then we'll replace it with the TIF dollars, so that it'll allow us to upfront the money at one time to pay for the repairs and pay our contractors, but collect it over a period of 5 years. And that's how it will be accomplished. By the way, it will not be done with any general fund money.
So it looks like the repairs have been needed for a while. Is this currently somewhere in the CIP?
No, it's not. This is an amendment because we haven't figured out what was going to happen. We weren't sure whether we wanted a permanent solution, whether a temporary solution would occur, and this is an amendment to add $1.7 million to the CIP.
So if by adding this is nowhere in the budget that was presented to us in
Not that
July,
I know of.
correct?
Not that I know of.
Thank you.
Trent?
Sorry about that. So you have additional increment that's been created by the valuation of the property going up.
Yes.
And what you're asking us to do is, over a period of time, finance these improvements with that additional increment. So if we didn't do this, where would that money go? To
One
the
of
general
two
fund?
things. It would be available for a project that if you didn't want this project, but we could agree on another project, that could be done.
Okay.
If that wasn't to be done and there was no project, then you would bring the district to an end, close that out, and those resources would be distributed to the county, the schools, and the NRDs. So it'd be one of those two paths.
So with this project, that the increment that's been created above and beyond, that project's over, and we would be extending it for a certain period of
They
time?
didn't come
or-
from individual projects. This was a district, so this area exists
Okay.
so that as time went on, it would grow.
Got it. Okay. So it's area rather than a project
Yes,
TIF.
exactly.
Okay. I'm good.
Carl?
Yes, I don't see Linda Hubka here. She runs the farmer's market, so Linda contacted me about the concerns, and she was the one who had witnessed individuals falling who come to her with the problems, and her vendors have reported those things. So these fixes are intended to remedy those issues.
First, we want the right pedestrian feel for the area. We want it to be that historic feel for the Haymarket, so it's reflective. And we do want it to meet standards, and it does not now meet standards. Yes, in a high-traffic area like this, you want to have very well-designed and executed sidewalks, and we do not have them now. And it'll take us a while to get there, but this will get us there.
And part of our challenge with downtown infrastructure, in particular with alleys and areas like this, is we just don't have a funding mechanism in place to really address
No.
these needs.
The virtue of this is this work is being essentially done from resources from exactly this area. We're not drawing from my house on South 44th to do this work. We're doing it from the businesses in the area, their growth and valuation, because it is an attractive core area that's now an entertainment center for the city. And this makes sure that the sidewalks and pedestrian way that gets customers to their stores are paid for and taken care of as soon as we can get to it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Dave, is there an expiration on the TIF district that we should be aware of?
2021.
2021. Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right, would anyone else like to speak to this item? No.
Madam Chair, members of City Council, I'm Darrell Nauman. I'm with the Lincoln Haymarket Development Corporation. We would like to respectfully request your adoption of 16R242, and it's an amendment to fiscal year 16-17 CIP to authorize and appropriate $1.7 million in TIF funds for the Haymarket Street and Streetscape project. The Lincoln Haymarket Development Corporation is a 501c3 that promotes and supports the preservation of the historic Haymarket District. The proposed streetscape improvements that are proposed to be completed with these funds, as well as the related mill and overlay project to be completed by Public Works in 2018, are direct support of this mission. The Lincoln Haymarket Development Corporation appreciates the support, especially of Councilman John Camp and Carl Estridge, in getting temporary improvements to the area. While temporary asphalt installed in the sidewalk area has helped to keep trip hazards from being an issue during the football game days, farmers market, and other heavy pedestrian days, it's not a permanent solution. As we understand it, the asphalt is expected to last 1 or 2 years, and the solution has brought us to give us time to design a permanent solution appropriate for this heavily traveled area. The lighting and paving improvement districts will not only support the great businesses, events, residents, and patrons that are an essential part of our district, but also encourages further reinvestment in the structures that make this area unique and historic. And I would like to ask you to support the amendment.
Any questions, Mr. Nauman? All right, thank you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, seeing none, please call the next item.
Item 31, adopting the Lincoln Electric System rate schedules to become effective January 1st, 2017.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Wales, CEO of the Lincoln Electric System. She was taking too long. CEO of the LES, Lincoln Electric System, and we're here to give you a brief presentation on the proposed 2017 budget and rates. We'll try to make that an abbreviated version over what some of you have seen already.
Actually, let's trade places so I can use the clicker. I sent you over a version of the presentation, and I'm going to pass this one to you. It's basically the same, but it's a little bit improved. So, I'm Laura Kapuska. I'm the Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Lincoln Electric System, and I'll try to keep up with the pace here. So we're here again today to talk with you about our budget and our rate adjustment. This is for January, to be effective January of 2017. To start off with, we have a number of financial metrics and targets that we work to achieve in our budgets. This budget that we're presenting does meet our debt service coverage target of 2 times. It also meets our cash on hand target, and it makes progress towards the other benchmarks or targets that we have. At the end of 2017, in accordance with this budget, we would remain at $28.5 million in our rate stabilization fund, so that would be considered fully funded. And this budget does not call for any long-term financings. This table shows a summary of how we have arrived at the 3% average rate increase that we are requesting. As you can see in the table, the biggest driver of our cost for 2017 is net power costs and increase in transmission expenses. So that was almost $26 million increase. We're going to look at some details of what those costs are in a couple of slides. Offsetting that increase was what resulted from a refinancing that we completed a couple months ago, and was able to lower our principal and interest payments in 2017, as well as the coverage for 2017. So that took about $17 million off of those increased costs. Retail sales are projected to be slightly lower next year than they were in the 2016 budget. So as a result of that, when you're selling less kilowatt hours, we need to increase the cost for each hour. And then finally, we had a number of miscellaneous increases and decreases that resulted in a total additional revenue requirement of $10.4 million. Also, we were able to offset that increase with some additional monies that we have sitting in our rate stabilization fund that are the result of the Burlington Northern settlement that we received last year. So we are planning to use the balance of those funds. As I mentioned earlier, that would then reduce the rate stabilization down to its target. So it does not take it below the target. So considering all of that, there was still the need for $7.5 million or a 3% average rate increase. Stop me if you have any questions at any time. First up, looking at the capital budget for 2017, it's about $8.5 million above what we had in the 2016 budget, and some of the major projects are in the box in the upper left-hand corner. The largest project for 2017 is our share of capital projects at the Laramie River Station, which LES has a partial ownership of, and that's in Wyoming. Next up is work on the Operations Center, which we've talked with you about for a number of years. So that would be our new Operations Center out on 98th and Rokeby. Next up is the Southeast Lincoln Reliability Project. That's a transmission project, and it's out in Southeast Lincoln, and it's addressing growth and the need for reliability in that part of town. The last 2 projects, the duct installation and the underground rebuilds, those are ongoing projects where we're looking at rebuilding aging infrastructure just to maintain reliability of our system. Okay, moving over to the operating budget. The first thing I want to point out is this is a little bit different than we've shown it to you in the past, but we're showing net power costs, and we're going to look at a couple slides as to what makes up net power costs. But I'm showing it this way, reflecting this way, because it gives a best view of where that increase is causing us to need the rate increase. So I'm going to set aside net power cost discussion for right now, and we'll look at that in a couple of slides. Other than that, on the operating side, our pilot is up slightly. That's our payment loaf tax. Depreciation is up slightly, and that's just additions to plant. There's about a $4.8 million increase in our transmission costs, and that's really related to Southwest Power Pool increased costs. And then finally on the O&M, operating and maintenance, and the administrative and general costs, those are down about $1.5 million. And the biggest driver for that decrease is our Sustainable Energy Program, which in 2017, we are reducing its funding to $2 million. It was $3 million in 2016, so there's a reduction there.
Ms. Pakuska, could you address for a moment the transmission, because that's up about 15 or 50%, and just what happened in the southeast or the pool there?
Right, Southwest Power Pool.
Thank
So a portion of that is related to, so we have to pay transmission costs as members of the Southwest Power Pool. And a portion of that increase is tied to a settlement of a historical transmission issue that it's taken them a while to figure out how, it ties to use of transmission lines in the past by others, and it was a quite complicated and complex formula. It took them a while to put together how to bill that, and so they have created the model and now have started to bill us for it. So quite a bit of that increase is related to just that historical use piece. And then there's also increase that's just due to ongoing increased costs at Southwest Power Pool.
Yeah, 50% just seems like a huge
It is, and
jump.
it goes back a few years, and it's based on the historical use that Laura referred to, but as it relates to projects that were built, but then the costs weren't fairly allocated back to the folks that built it from those that used it, so.
Among the pool, it was just reallocated to be more equal then, you're saying? And we were
Yes.
probably getting a good deal, and now we're getting less of a good deal.
Right, so we may see.
Still a good deal, just less, you're right.
So we may see some of that reduced in the future as that gets billed and collected.
Thank you.
Okay, flipping over and looking at net power costs as being the biggest driver in this need for the rate adjustment. This shows the details of what's included in that net power cost. So what we've included is power purchase and power produce. So that's our cost to generate energy or buy energy, all of which we turn around and sell into the Southwest Power Pool. And if you look at 2016 compared to 2017, it's basically flat. There's little change there. Where you see the big change is in wholesale revenue. So what is Southwest Power Pool, the market, paying us for the revenue that we're putting into the market? And as you can see, that's down quite a bit from what we were had in the budget for 2016. And we're going to look at a little bit more now what drove that decrease in that revenue. So a big part of the input into the pricing of the market is natural gas prices. So natural gas prices were down quite a bit, or have dropped quite a bit. And this slide kind of gives an example of what we were looking at. So the dotted orange line at the top, that's what we had in our 2016 budget for natural gas prices. The solid orange line at the bottom is what we actually have, what has actually occurred in 2016. So you can see, especially in the first 5 months of this year, what gas prices were significantly different than what we had in our budget. And the four solid lines in the middle, those are 2017 forecasts by a number of consultants that we've looked for pricing. So we always look to consultants to help us develop that pricing. Because of what happened this year and the big deviation between budget and actual, we actually sought the input of additional pricing experts. So you can see they're quite huddled together again for 2017, but based on what we experienced this year and that they were quite a bit off this year, we actually took the EIA, so the green line, we dropped it by 15%. So we made our budget just a little bit more conservative, just reflecting what we have learned, what we experienced this year. So the gas prices are a big input into what we receive for revenue from the market. It's not the only input into those prices, but what we actually receive from the market is called LMPs, or locational marginal pricing. So what this slide is showing is what we had in our budget for 2016. That's the dotted line at the top. The solid orange line is what we actually received for pricing in the market. The blue line in the middle is what we have set for our budget for 2017. So you can see, again, that gas prices, actual and budget, were significant deviation. Same thing with the LMPs, or the pricing that we're receiving from the market. Okay, so considering those different inputs and impacts, we rolled it to the 3% average rate adjustment. But as we've talked about in the past, the way LES sets its rates after determining the top line need for revenue is based on cost of service. So what you can see in this table here is at the very bottom, the retail increase is 3%. But as you look at each of the rate classes, you can see that they're something different than 3%. So for example, the residential is 3.5%. And if you look over to the right, that takes them to 97% cost of service. So cost of service, just a reminder, that's what does it cost us to serve that type of customer. and a large customer versus a residential customer have different costs. So we keep our eye on cost of service. As another example, you can see general service. They received less than the 3% increase, but if you look at where they're at with regards to cost of service, that would explain why their increase was lower.
If I may,
Sorry.
Laura, when you're talking about cost of service, is that just the power, or does that also include your distribution costs?
That would be all in, what does it cost to serve? Customer, energy, all fixed costs.
Because I know in recent years, you've divided out the energy cost, and you're trying to also then have the consumer through its base charge.
Right,
help
that
pay.
comes next. So we've
But is that
decided.
in this cost of service here?
Mhm.
So, okay, so you are using the actual energy and the cost to distribute it.
Right.
There is one component that also makes the changes. As you can see, it's a little out of whack, or more out of whack than you would say than we've had in the past. We're trying to move back on some cases. And that's because we haven't had a rate increase or rate change in actually 2 years or 3 years. So this is the first time in 3 years we've had a chance to adjust that and recognize where those costs of service are and try to true them up.
Now, am I not correct when you say a rate change? That's a rate change in the energy portion, but you have had increases in the consumer charge.
Right, last year we made a change in the customer and facilities charge, but we did not have an overall rate adjustment. But when we make changes like that, there's no revenue impact to LAS.
It
It's
was
just-
revenue neutral. Energy went down and the fixed charge went up.
Okay, so this is what I believe you're referring to, John, is the rate restructuring. And so also included in our proposal is additional rate of the rate restructuring. And this slide is just kind of a reminder of why we need to do it. And that's that a lot of our costs that we incur, 79% of them are fixed in nature. But if you look at the revenue side, only about 12% of our revenue comes in a fixed way. So it's really out of balance. This is something that LES is not alone in addressing. There's many utilities that are struggling with this and making changes, and you probably hear about some of them in the news. As Kevin mentioned, these changes are revenue neutral to LES, and these changes only impact our non-demand customers. So it's residential, heating service, and our general service customers. So I think I mentioned also when I was here last year is that we were going to spend some time and figure out what did we think was the best way to move forward with this rate restructuring. So we have made some changes in our proposed plan for moving ahead for how to make these changes. We're going to look at that on the next couple slides. So just a reminder, over on the right-hand side, that's the variable charge, that's our energy charge. Everything that's in that box right now is what we collect through the energy charge. And with the Circle Line distribution system substations, those are the costs that we began moving last year, we're continuing to move this year, and we will continue to move. We are not completing that movement this year. There's other things that we have to look at and take into account, and that's when you have an underlying rate increase and you're moving these charges. We need to look at how that impacts customers because it will impact them differently as far as a rate. So another thing that we're doing along the lines is that we're separating it's probably better to see it on this slide here. We're separating in our fixed component the way we collect into two different categories. So right now on a residential electric bill, it will say customer and facilities charge. And what we have proposed to move forward with is separating that. So to have a customer charge and have a facilities charge. Those two have different types of costs that go into them, so it makes it more transparent what types of costs are being collected. So, and then within that facilities charge, we've proposed move ahead with actually breaking it down into 3 levels based on a customer's usage. And we did, as I mentioned, we did a lot of analysis on this, and we're able to determine that there's actually different costs to serve this facilities portion for different size customers. So we've identified these 3 different levels, and you can see on this table here what the proposed facilities charge is for each of the levels, and the customer charge is the same all the way across. We will set this, we will designate the level for our residential customers in January, and then with the potential to adjust that every January. Okay, and I mentioned before that we didn't move all the way ahead with completing this allocation of cost because there is impacts on customers when you combine the rate restructuring plus the rate increase. So this table points out some of those changes. So if we just look at level 2 for an example, right in the middle there, someone that uses about 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, would be in level 2, and the impact of both the increase and the restructuring is feels like a 4.7% increase to them. So $4.27, but it's a higher than the average residential. On the flip side, somebody that is in that same level but is a larger energy user, their increase is only 2.8%. So as we were determining how much to allocate and move this year, this is the type of information that we were looking at and keeping our eye on. The other thing to mention is that when we are increasing the facilities charge, there's an offsetting decrease to the energy charge, and that's identified in the upper right-hand corner. So both the summer and the winter energy charges are being reduced. What we also did with our winter energy charges is remove the declining block rate structure that we had in place. This is what we're proposing. So right now, if you use over 900 kilowatt hours a month in the wintertime, your rate goes down. And we felt that that was not a incentive to be efficient with energy. And so instead, what we're proposing is to have a lower winter rate, but not to have a declining. So no matter how much you use in the wintertime, it would be the same rate, and it'd be what would be shown in the box there. Okay, so in summary, there's 2 resolutions that have been presented to you. The first is a budget resolution. We've talked, and now at this point, the amount that's actually in the resolution is not the net power cost. It is just power cost, and that's because the wholesale revenue is a revenue piece, and you usually don't include revenue into the, when you're talking about just budget expenses. So now you can see the capital and then the rest of the operating budget is shown there in the table. Also included in that resolution is a ongoing provision that we have in there every year, and it gives us the ability to reimburse ourselves for capital expenditures in the future. Also, there's included in there a accounting provision that we've had also in past years, which would allow us to take a portion of the outage costs at one of our generating units and amortize it over 4 years. So that helps by not having to charge our customers all in 1 year for that amount because it's a significant outage. And then finally, the continued eminent domain authority, which is also included in each year's resolution. In the second resolution, the rate resolution, a couple pieces in there is the adoption of the rate schedules, and those were all sent over to you in a red line version. The elimination of the declining winter energy block that I just mentioned. The modification of the customer and energy charges that we looked at. The Energy Assistance Program, it's not called out in the resolution, but just to make sure that everyone's aware of that, each year we have funding within our budget for our Energy Assistance Program, which is started in 2001, and those funds are provided to our customers that are having a hard time meeting their bills, and that work is done by the Community Action Program. So there's about $307,000 included in the 2017 budget for that program. Then minor housekeeping changes, we always find something, the format's wrong or something's wrong. Those are also redlined in the top copy that was provided to you. And what's not also in there is a virtual net metering program. I included on here just so we could talk about it for a second, but it's a non-retail rate, so it doesn't get sent over to you all for approval. On December 1, we're going to have a public meeting about this new virtual net metering program, which our board just approved at last week's meeting. We're excited about it. So it provides another opportunity for us to use the new solar farm that was recently, we did the ribbon cutting on. This program is a little bit different in that it allows people to provide an upfront payment and then receive the output off of the panels directly to their electric bill, so they can offset their home's usage with this virtual net metering. We believe the cost for people to buy panels is less than what it would cost them to put it on their own home, and they would have no maintenance. So we're hoping that it will be well received. Okay, and at the end of the day, it really is about rates, and being in a public power state, and we're very owned by the customers, so we're always very conscious about what our rates are and how do they compare to others. So we do a couple different rate analysis. The one here on this slide is our regional utility bill comparison. This might be slightly different than what I have provided. Well, I know it's different than what I sent over in the package because we just updated it last week because we received announcements of some additional rate increases that were being done in Colorado. So we've included those in there now. When we do this rate analysis, we include everything. So it's the fixed charges, if a utility has a franchise fee or a energy cost adjustment, it's all included. So we like to have this be a apples-to-apple comparison of everything. And on in each of the 5 boxes, that represents a different customer size. And the shaded area, Lincoln, is LES. And you can see that we are either the lowest or nearly the lowest in every single one of these categories. We also do a national rate study, which is available on our website. And we look at 100 different cities across the United States. And we look at a lot of different usage levels for the customers. And in that study, LES was 13th lowest overall. So we are proud of both of those facts. And I'm going to turn this one over to Kevin to talk about.
Okay, this next slide is just a little different way to look at what the rate competitiveness is. We talk about having low rates, we talk about having high reliability, but what we've done is we've looked at those 10 utilities that are higher than us just with respect to the residential sector and decided we ought to figure out what that the value of public power is for an economic value in the community. And so what we've drawn out how we did this, but in effect we took the average of those 10 higher cities than us, and that's with the proposed 2017 rate adjustment. And then we adjusted it for the average use per customer in our territory, took it times 12 to come up with an annual cost, and then times the number of customers, which is 118,000 customers. So what that difference represents is $35 million. But what it really shows is what's the discretionary income that we're putting into the community as opposed to someone that was served at the average rate of these other cities in the region. And we believe that's a significant factor if you think what it would take to put that much money in the community from an economic development perspective. It's just one more way to look at the value that we're trying to bring to the community and trying to make when we set rates, when we make policies with respect to it. So we thought that might be an appropriate way to just take a different approach to it. The second thing you'll note, and you may have seen this, is we actually put some ads together with respect to rankings against the Big Ten. We trying to keep in the spirit of the Huskers football. But in doing that, we're also trying to point out that when there's a lot of discussions that you hear about, well, is public power still a valid business model? We think that we've got several ways to demonstrate that, notwithstanding the reliability, notwithstanding the customer engagement that we do with our customers. So.
You notice how all these other Big Tens come to town with all their power packs and they plug them in and get our electricity and take it home. So.
As long as they're paying for it, we're okay.
Okay, and then just finally, just wanted to remind you that we do quite an extensive outreach to our customers, looking for different mediums and modes to get with them, and not only to talk with them about the rate adjustment and the budget, but also to get their feedback. And so again, this year we used quite a number of different ways to meet with our customers.
Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation today, and thank you for helping us be #1 in the Big Ten. I appreciate that list, so that was good. I had a question. Well, actually, it's more of an observation. I was looking at the elimination of the declining winter energy rate, and I actually really like this because I think that, unfortunately, sometimes bigger families create bigger energy bills and they're still trying to conserve energy. So I do appreciate that everyone seems to be paying the same rate then without that. Thank you.
Just a little extra note on that. When we were looking at that, we looked across the United States and couldn't find anybody else that had that except for in the state of Nebraska. So we were kind of solo in that. So, thank you.
Other questions? Could you speak to how the rate charges help low-income families, and particularly those who are in apartments who might otherwise be charged a higher rate if you hadn't adjusted for usage and the work that's being done to make sure that this is equitable?
Right. So I'm just going to flip back to that slide really quick here. So when we look at level 1, so that's less than 800 kilowatt hours a month, that we actually have about 60% of our customers in that block, and that we also have a large proportion of our multifamily dwellings in that group also. A number of our low income are also in that group. So if we would have just allocated it flat across to all customers the same facilities charge, they would be paying quite a bit more, probably $6 or $7 more, whereas now, based on what the cost is to actually serve them, we were able to apply a lower charge to that size user.
Okay, and most of us had briefings and conversations with you about this prior to this hearing, but I think you mentioned maybe 75% of multifamily apartment dwellers, you're managing to capture that universe, and maybe 75% of your low-income customers. Is that correct? To give people a feel for what you're talking about?
Right, that is exactly correct, 75% of both in that category.
Thank you. Jane.
Laura, could you address the reduction in the sustainability fund and some of the reasons behind that reduction?
Sure. So we were moving from $3 million this year to $2 million next year, and we have just recently completed a study, had an external consultant do a study on that program. And I mean, it was really time to do that, to look at what were the programs we were offering and what were the incentives we were paying. So the end goal is to make sure that what we're paying is appropriate and is bringing in benefit for LES and its customers. So in doing that study, it wasn't a prescriptive study that came out and said you should do this and you should not do that. It gave you some ways to measure the benefits and the impacts of your programs. And as a result of that, we've moved ahead with eliminating some of our lighting programs. And that's because the lighting that we were incenting has become the standard in the industry. So it made no sense to incent that anymore. We've done a reduction in some of our heat pump programs, again, moving towards looking for what's the right incentive in that category. But on the flip side, we are piloting a program next year, it will be something new for us, that it's targeting multifamily units, and it's a direct install for like LEDs or low flow shower heads. So in those programs, we would be providing the LEDs or the shower heads directly to the maintenance people at the apartments and asking them to do the installation. And in that way, the tenants, which usually don't have the ability to impact their energy use, by doing modifications because they don't own the facility, this gives them a way to get a benefit of the SEP program through this pilot.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And can you speak a little bit to your integrated resource plan, which I think also came up when questions about the decrease in the sustainable energy program was discussed? Can you talk about the IRP?
Yep. So in combination with the SEP program, we are going to be updating our integrated resource plan next year. And so the integrated resource plan tells us when do we need resources for our customers. So those two are going hand in hand as we look at what are the benefits we're getting from our sustainable energy program and how does that impact our need for resources. Want to add anything else? No?
Well, just one of the keys to the integrated resource plan is balancing supply side and demand side. The SEP program clearly is a demand side or conservation efficiency. So that overall plan is recognizing both how really our loads have gone down. We don't see the same kind of growth we've had, but also we're looking at these other additional programs to find out how do we best serve the customer in the long run at the lowest cost.
Thank you. All right. No further questions from council. We'll see if anyone else would like to testify on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone else would like to speak, please come forward now and let us know your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Andy Pollack. I'm with the Rembolt Lutke law firm here in town. I'm here representing the Lincoln Employers Coalition. I've been here before the City Council representing the same group. It's a group of high-volume electricity users, mainly industrial users of LES power. I would like to ask that my comments please be considered neutral on the LES budget and the rate adjustment. I'd point out briefly that the coalition has been here the past 2 years supporting the LES budget and the rates, including the fixed charges. Before I get into the meat of the comments here, and I will be very brief, I'd like to express our appreciation for the work that LES does in terms of putting together its budget and communicating what it's doing to the industrial community. As Ms. Kaputska said, they do undertake a significant outreach effort, and we learn a lot from them. It's been a hallmark of Mr. Wales' leadership and Laura Kaputska's leadership that they are transparent, that they explain well what they're doing, and that they're very responsive to questions that we have. And this year, as in the past, we've had a number of questions about the budget. While we can't say that we particularly like the increase that you will be looking at, we do understand it, and we do think it's been explained. The rationale for the increase has been explained well, and again, we do not object to it either. I would mention just a few concerns and specific elements about this year's budget and rate increase. First, the proposed rate increase of 5.5% for large power contract users will have a significant impact on members of the coalition that I represent. One company, a manufacturing plant, for example, will see an increase of about $70,000 in its cost of electricity for the next year. That's a real number. That represents 2 good jobs. That represents significant expansion. It represents significant and important decisions that particular company will have to make. The impact is real, and we want you to all remember that. Second of all, while we do not support the rate increase, we do not object to it because we think it represents conservative planning for future contingencies, and Ms. Kaputska explained those well. One of those contingencies is the expected low price of natural gas, which obviously has an impact on LES revenues and the sales of wholesale power. I would conclude that remark by simply saying that rate stability is important for the businesses I represent, just like the businesses that you own. Rate stability is incredibly important to budgeting and to future planning. Third, I want to go on the record supporting what we supported in the past, and that is LES's Sustainable Energy Program. As I've said before to this council, our group is a convert to this program. We've seen what this program has done in terms of pushing out the need for new generation. We strongly support the program, and we think LES has made a right adjustment downward in this program this year, but we do support that program. Fourth, we continue to support LES's commitment to keep rates in line with the cost of service on a per-class rate class basis. We hold this position despite the fact that it means that large users will experience a higher rate increase this year. And finally, we support LES's shift of variable cost to fixed costs. That's the rate structuring that Ms. Kaputska talked about. We support this shift in terms of the charges applied to recover the costs that LES experiences. With that, I would be glad to answer any questions.
Jane.
Did the Lincoln Employers Coalition have any thoughts on the amount that is in the rate stabilization funds? I know that oftentimes was a concern that maybe it was kept at too high of a value rather than redirecting some of those funds towards some of the other needs.
We don't object to the level of the rate stabilization fund at its current place. We do support and applaud LES for its decision to pull some money from that fund to stabilize rates this year. We think that was prudent, but we think it's at an appropriate level. I know in the past that I've been here expressing some concern, not so much about the level of the fund, but about how much they put into the fund in any given year. That has had an impact on rates in the past, but no, we don't, Councilman, we don't have any objection to that particular fund right now.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item?
My name's Richard Draper. I live at 2315 North 89th Street. I live in a small townhome. I don't have a real pretty transparency presentation, but I do have my bill, last month's bill. What I find amazing is, since it's a small townhome, all of the add-ons on my electric bill doubles my electric bill. And the one that I most object to is the one that's called city dividend for utility ownership. They are getting paid for being there. Now, really the only point I want to make is I'm 78 years old. I'm on a fixed budget. I will not ever get more money. And while I can afford to pay this increase, I would remind you that the only increase that I've gotten or will get is a whole 0.3% Social Security starting in January. That's going to amount to a whole $4 for me and my wife a month. The other point I'd like to make is these people come, they have their pretty transparencies, and this has got to be it. The only thing I would suggest or like is the council to really question them. Okay, you have this budget. Ask them what they can really get along with. One more thing I might point out, I'm getting a 0.3% increase. I didn't see anything on their presentation what kind of percentage everybody from the CEO or president, whatever he is, of the electric company is going to get this year. I'm sure it's a lot more than 0.3%. I thank you for your time.
Cindy?
Mr. Drexler? Mr. Drexler?
I'm sorry?
Hi, Cindy Lamb. I'd like to thank you very much for coming tonight. And I wonder, since you know they put up all those slide presentations and you brought your bill with you tonight, are you willing to put that on the overhead so that we can see the dividend costs that you're talking about?
There you go. You have a pen that writes.
Is there a way to zoom that in a little bit?
But you know, it's on here, it's only $2.25, but, you know, it's like any other bill that any of us senior citizens get. You get charged for whatever it is, in this case electricity, but then there's all these other add-ons. And after a while, they really start to add up. And, you know, we're never going to really get any more significant of money.
So by add-ons, you mean all the items that are below your usage itself?
Yeah, my electric bill was only $19.91, but the total bill ends up down here at $38.14. I really question, like I say, whether they need the full amount that they're asking for. I'm only questioning is, yes, they want this amount, but what can they live with?
Thank you, sir.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right. Would the applicant like a chance to rebut any of the comments? No? Okay. Please call the next item, Sony.
Item 32, adopting the Lincoln Electric System annual budget for 2017 to become effective January 1st, 2017. I'll move on to...
Didn't call them together, but I guess we'll take them together later. Okay.
Okay. Item 33, accepting the report of new and pending claims against the city and approving disposition of claims set forth for the period of October 16 through the 31st of 2016.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak to a claim? All right, seeing none, please call the next item.
That will end our public hearing resolutions. Okay, we'll move on to public hearing ordinances second reading and related resolutions. Item 34, approving a lease agreement between B&J Partnership and the City of Lincoln doing business as City of Lincoln Urban Development Department for a lease of office space at 850 Q Street for the period of March 1st, 2016 through February 29th, 2020.
Members of the City Council, David Landis, Urban Development Department Director, the applicant. Our parking offices are under the Haymarket Garage in the Haymarket. They've been there for about 8 years. Our landlord is B&J Partners, the Speedway Properties. It's been a good location and it's convenient. It's a lot of foot traffic and action in the area. People do come in and pay their parking tickets by foot, and it is convenient to have it located actually in a garage where you have first hour free in a retail shopper zone, so business can be done proximate to the place that we, transfer money, pay tickets, waive tickets, and the like. This is about $12 a square foot. We've been there for 8 years. This is for another 4, and with a 3% escalator for those years. We think it's reasonable. We'd hope that the council would accept the lease.
Any questions for Dave? Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, please call the next item.
Item 35, approving a purchase agreement between the City of Lincoln and Mohammed H. Al Asadi and Rakad H. Al Latif for the sale of city-owned property generally located at 629 South 19th Street.
This is a case of city-constructed affordable housing. This is not a money-making operation. We do it for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that we're trying to get rid of conditions that we think are problematical in the community, and this was such a house. This has so much contrast, it might be hard to see what the basement looked like and the sink that was falling off the wall or the gutters that were there. But the house was purchased for $22,000. There was asbestos that had to be removed. We did demolish the house. And then we took federal funds to do all of this work. All of the money came from the federal government in the forms of home funds, which are to be spent on behalf of low and moderate income people. We don't have an option on that score, nor would we want to. We think it's an appropriate goal. We oversaw the construction of the house, and we're selling it as a willing seller with a willing buyer at $115,000. This is in a neighborhood that has a great deal of rental property. This is one of the first pieces of new construction for a homeowner. And I can tell you that the neighborhood association was thrilled with the fact that we were doing the work in the neighborhood. And they would be here, but for the fact that they had an untimely loss of the leader of that organization who recently passed away. Can I explain or answer questions for the council? Yes.
Cindy?
Do you have any pictures of the property now?
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. I meant to show that, because I do have one.
I thought you might.
I think I got ahead of myself and showed the one without the other. All right.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you.
John, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Landis, thank you. You said the city acquired this for $125,000.
No, we acquired this property for $22,000. This is 629 South 19th. There are two houses, John.
Okay.
And we did another location that we got from Cornhusker Bank. When we sell that house, we'll be back to tell that story. This is the story of the lot next to
So this is the 22.5. So what was the 125 then? I guess I'm confused.
There are two of these houses side by side. The other lot was an 8-plex that we bought from Cornhusker Bank. So you would have seen that number. You have an accurate memory, but it's on a different piece of property that's right next door. And the reason that's not here today is because we haven't sold that piece of property. This is the one we're selling now.
Okay. And then my next question would be, in addition to that 22.5, while I think you testified you used some federal funds or whatever to do the remediation and so forth, do you know about how much those funds totaled?
You mean a year's time for the city, or
Well,
we
whatever
will have
beyond
spent
the
about
bu-
$200,000 for the project.
So 22.5 plus another 180, about
We
200,000 total.
we spent about $200,000 for this, and we're going to get $115,000 back.
Okay, and so an $85,000 loss, but everything above the 22.5 to get to the 200,000, you said was federal funds,
Yes, all the money in this project are federal funds.
or even the 22.5?
No, we purchased it with federal funds.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any further questions? Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, please call the next item.
Item 36, change of zone 16027, application of Bryan Medical Center for a change of zone to remove the landmark designation from that portion of the Bryan Medical Center West Campus that formerly housed the Sophie Teeters Nurses Home on property generally located at 1650 Lake Street.
Good evening, members of the City Council. Danae Kalkowski appearing on behalf of Bryan Medical Center, 1111 Lincoln Mall, Suite 350. This change of zone just removes a landmark designation and brings it into basically up to date with what the current situation is. Bryan obtained a certificate of allowance for the demolition of the Sophie Teeters building on its west campus. That building then has subsequently been demolished and replaced by Memorial Garden that was approved by special permit on the campus. So there really is no longer a purpose for the landmark overlay which originally existed on the site. The Historical Preservation Commission approved the removal, as did the Planning Commission on its consent agenda. I'd be happy to, we're asking for your approval also, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Earl? Yeah, it's just, I've not been to the garden, so is there any designation or recognition about what was there before?
Yes, yes. So it is a memorial garden, so there is tribute given to of that and the purpose and the scope of what was formerly there. And so that was one of the benefits of having it replaced, is with something that still gave honor to what was there.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Kalkowski. Are there any other people who'd like to testify on this item?
All right, please call the next item.
I'll be calling items 37 and 38 together. Annexation 16011, amending the Lincoln corporate limits map by annexing approximately 22 acres of property generally located at South 70th Street and Rokeby Road, along with the change of zone of 16032, application of Rokeby Holdings LLC for a change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R3 Residential District on approximately 22 acres of property generally located at South 70th Street and Rokeby Road.
Madam Chair, members of the council, Derek Rademacher with Civil Design Group, 8535 Executive Woods Drive, Lincoln, Nebraska. Here on behalf of Rokeby Holdings Limited, this is essentially the next phase of a planned preliminary plat that was approved several years ago, and we're asking for the rezoning of 22 acres and the annexation of 22 acres as the next phase of development.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? All right, please call the next item.
I'll be calling items 39 through 40 together. Annexation 16012, amending the Lincoln corporate limits map by annexing approximately 15 acres of property generally located at the northwest corner of the intersection of 70th Street and Yankee Hill Road, and the related change of zone 04075G, application of Village Gardens Development Company, LLC, for a change of zone from AG Agriculture District to R3 Residential District and B3 Commercial District, designating said property as a planned unit development district and approving a development plan which proposes modifications of the zoning ordinance, land subdivision ordinance, and design standards to provide approximately 12.5 acres for a place of religious assembly and approximately 2.5 acres for neighborhood commercial uses on property generally located northwest of the intersection of 70th Street and Yankee Hill Road.
Good evening, members of the council. Danae Kalkowski again. This time I'm appearing tonight on behalf of 1640 LLC and White Holdings. We have a request to annex and add approximately 14.46 acres at the southwest corner of 70th and Yankee Hill Road to the Village Gardens PUD. We're rezoning about 12.5 acres of that to R3 PUD, which is the area up here to the north, and it's shown for future usage at church. The south 2 acres is being zoned with a B3 PUD and will be commercial use as we anticipate the rest of this when it continues to develop. This request is in conformance with the comp plan, which shows this area as a neighborhood commercial. And so it's really just the next step in the development out here. These items were both approved by the Planning Commission on their consent agenda, and we're asking for your approval also. Again, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I think we're good.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? All right, please call the next item.
I will be calling items 41 through 52 together as they are all related. Item 41, approving the updated master plan for Woods Park for adjustment of parking lots to accommodate expanded uses at the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department.
Okay, can we have someone representing an applicant come forward? Are you going to read all of them, Sony?
Yes.
We'll let you read all of them at once. Thank you.
Item 42 is approving a construction and ground lease agreement between the City of Lincoln and Lincoln Children's Zoo governing the lease of current and expanded footprint of Lincoln Children's Zoo together with the Science Focus Program Zoo School for students operated by LPS on the Triangle, generally bounded by 27th Street, Normal Boulevard, and A Street. Item 43, approving a real estate purchase agreement of parking area between the City of Lincoln and Lincoln Children's Zoo for the sale of city-owned parking lot generally located at 2847 South A Street. Item 44 is approving an operating agreement between the City of Lincoln and Lincoln's Children's Zoo governing ongoing operation of Lincoln's Children's Zoo on leased city property. Item 45 is amending Title 12 of the Lincoln Municipal Code related to parks by repealing Chapter 12.36 entitled Lincoln Children's Zoo in its entirety by repealing Sections 12.36.010, 12.36.020, 12.36.030, 12.36.040, 12.36.050, 12.36.060, 12.36.070, 12.36.080, and 12.36.090. Item 46, Comp Plan Conformance 16005, declaring approximately 30,139 square feet of the property generally located at 2847 A Street as surplus property. Item 47, Text Amendment 16010, amending Chapter 27.63 of the Lincoln Municipal Code related to special permits by amending Section 27.63.170 to provide that a parking lot may be allowed by special permit in the R1 through R8 zoning districts and in the O2 zoning district for the parking lot is located within 360 feet from property occupied by a zoo, and the parking lot is primarily used in connection with said zoo, and repealing Section 27.63.170 as hereto existing. Item 48, change of zone 16028, application of the City of Lincoln Parks and Recreation Department for a change of zone from B3 Commercial District to R6 Residential District on property generally located at 2847 A Street. Item 49 is the street and alley vacation 16005, vacating a portion of South 29th Street, right-of-way, a portion of the east-west alley located in Block 2, Zerong and Ames Addition, and a portion of Washington Street right-of-way generally located at 2847 A Street. Item 50, special permit 16047, application of OPAC Properties LLC to construct an additional parking lot, including waivers to setbacks and stormwater detention on property generally located at 2847 A Street. Item 51, waiver 16007, application of OPAC Properties LLC to waive parking lot surfacing requirements pursuant to Section 27.67.100 of the Lincoln Municipal Code on property generally located at 2847 A Street. And item 52, change of zone 16022, application of City of Lincoln Parks and Rec Department and designated the Ager Building on Antelope Park Triangle east of 27th and B Streets as a landmark, changing the zoning district from P public use to P public use with landmark overlay on property generally located at 1300 South 27th Street.
Sorry. Now it's the main event.
Madam Chair, members of the council, my name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th Street, Suite 1900 here in Lincoln. I intended at the conclusion of my presentation to ask members of the audience that are supporters of the zoo to stand, but given the fact that it's 7:30 and there's probably homework to be done and baths to be taken, I'm going to ask them to stand now, because if they have to depart, I'm going to ask them to do so. Supporters of the zoo, please stand for us. Thank you.
And Tom, can you just check to see if your microphone's on, or maybe pull it closer to you? I think we're having a little trouble with the audio tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
Is that
That's
better?
better. Yes.
Just because I guess in openness, would it be good just to let those who may be opposed also stand at this point, just so they can also go home and do homework? Well, I don't know if there is anybody. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, neighbor.
The 12 items on the agenda in front of you, I don't think I've ever had a matter come before this council with so many different strings that are attached, but I thought maybe I ought to start with a little bit about the zoo itself. In representing the zoo on this matter, I found out that the zoo has existed on this triangle for over 80 years. Since 1961, the occupancy was previously run by the city of Lincoln. Obviously, the Lincoln Children's Zoo is a Nebraska nonprofit corporation, separate and distinct from the city of Lincoln. In 1961, occupancy was given to the Lincoln Children's Zoo, and the city has really exited the operations in 1981. The impact of the zoo in the city of Lincoln is tremendous. In 2015, for which information is now available, there was over 218,000 visitors to the zoo, and that really covers an operational field of about 7 to 8 months on an annual basis. The Lincoln Children's Zoo attracts $7.65 million in new spending to our city and county, and the Lincoln Children's Zoo is 100% self-sufficient. There's no city funding that goes into this project. In 2015, the Lincoln Children's Zoo provided more than 20,000 free admissions and over 1,000 free memberships to low-income individuals within the city. Lastly, I'd like to mention and highlight the article that was in the paper this weekend that the Lincoln Children's Zoo has maintained its accreditation by the Association of Zoo and Aquariums for 25 consecutive years, one of 60 institutions in the country that have been able to maintain that accreditation. Success breeds success, and the plan in front of you tonight would really expand the footprint of the Lincoln Children's Zoo and really take it to a 12-month year-round operation. How did we get here today? Several things. The Lincoln Children's Zoo and the Park and Recreation Department have engineered a pretty extensive public process over the last several years. In 2013, the Board of Directors of the Lincoln Children's Zoo first passed its resolution. In 2015, design charrettes were held, open houses were held, and the Park and Recreation Department undertook a survey at which indicated that 93% of the respondents supported the zoo expansion. This year, this project has gone to the Urban Design Committee twice, and on October 28th, the Planning Commission approved the 6 items that were in front of it that really pertain to the parking lot located south of A Street for overflow parking. I wanted to just briefly talk about the overflow parking. What you have on the overhead is really the site plan for the expanded zoo, including the parking lot to the south that's really designated for overflow parking. The main footprint that you will see new structures consisting of a new entryway with a zoo school expansion, additional exhibition space around the zoo, and a new repurposing of the Ager building that currently exists along 27th Street. The items south of A Street, how I have grouped this, is the items south of A Street deal with the surplus of the property, the purchase of that property by the zoo for $275,000, a text amendment that would permit zoo parking within the residential district, the street and alley vacation. I was going to put up the site plan for the area that is located south of A Street. The shaded area is the area that's being vacated. There's a change of zone to take the current B3 zone to an R6 to make it consistent. There's a special permit to allow the parking lot in this residential district that it will be subject to the parking lot design standards and will be subject to a 60% screening requirement. And lastly, there's a waiver request for the Phase 2 parking, which is really the southern wing, to permit the zoo to defer surfacing that for up to 2 years, just to provide some flexibility on the timing. Now, the other item that I really wanted to spend some time about is really the agreements that are in front of you. The first item is item number 42, which is the construction and ground lease agreement. It's important to note that it includes the existing footprint of the zoo, which is parcel number 1. It also includes parcel number 2, which is the expanded footprint, and then it also includes parcel number 3, which is located south of A Street. I think it's important to note what it doesn't include also. It does not include the rose garden northwest of the footprint. It does not include the perennial garden and the parking for those gardens. It does not include the Rock Island bike path, which is really at a different grade, but it's below and outside of the footprint of the leased premises under this lease agreement. And nor does it include the buffer along 27th Street nor along A Street. The terms of the lease really provide for a 50-year term, requires payments to the City of Lincoln by the Lincoln Children's Zoo, initially of $925,000 at lease signing. That's really designated for the design and construction of the new home for Parks and Recreation Department. There's an additional payment of $325,000 to be paid in 3 installments to allow the city to acquire additional green space. That, coupled with the consideration on the real estate purchase agreement, would total $600,000 for usage by the city in acquiring additional green space. The parking for the zoo is located in the southwest corner of the triangle. This was really at the recommendation of some of the public process that occurred, but then additional overflow and staff parking located south of A Street. Lastly, the lease and ground lease agreement, the construction and ground lease agreement does provide consent to the sublease by Lincoln Children's Zoo to Lincoln Public Schools for the continuation of the Science Focus program, which is in its 20th year. The second agreement, item number 44 on your agenda, deals with more of the day-to-day issues for the operating agreement. Under this agreement, the city has retained the right to approve the admission fee structure. The city has retained the right to approve hours of operation. This agreement obligates the zoo to maintain its accreditation. As I mentioned, they have done so for 25 years by a nationally recognized body. This agreement does provide that the Lincoln Children's Zoo will own title to the improvements and the animals. And lastly, it does require the Lincoln Children's Zoo to establish an endowment of $500,000 for capital repairs and maintenance of this project. The one thing I would ask for you is that items 42 and 43, consisting of the construction and ground lease agreement and the operating agreement, I would ask you to hold the public hearing open on those 2 items for at least until December 5th, until these items would be back for your approval. We're still waiting National Park Service approval from the Land and Water Conservation process. Lastly, and not least, I do want to extend my thanks for all the people that worked on this project. Has been a very collaborative process. Special thanks go to the mayor's office, the Parks and Recreation Department, the Planning Department. There have been many meetings, many discussions, many issues that were confronted. And I would ask for your support of this package for items 41 through 51. I know that we have a couple other individuals that want to talk specifically about this entire package. The majority of them pertain to and really are sponsored by the zoo. There's a couple that really pertain to city issues. One dealing with item 41, which is the Woods Park Master Plan Amendment. And then I think item 52 really deals with the designation of the Ager Building as a landmark. Certainly the zoo is supportive of those items, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have of me at this time.
John.
Yes, Mr. Houston, just for clarification, you wanted the public hearing held open on item 52, which would be the designation. Is that correct?
42 and 44. 42 is the construction and ground lease agreement, and 44 is the operating agreement. Okay. Those are the items that we're waiting final confirmation and approval from the Land and Water Conservation.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Houston? Okay.
I'll leave the site plan up there if anybody else needs it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Lynn Johnson with Lincoln Parks and Recreation. As Mr. Houston indicated, there have been discussions going on about the zoo expansion in earnest since 2014. The process has involved multiple meetings of 4 city advisory boards and committees: Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the Urban Design Committee, the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee, and the Historic Preservation Commission. And we have received advice and guidance from each one of those. I'm going to pass this around. This is a summary of the public process. Again, as Mr. Houston noted, there was a community survey in May of 2013. There was more than 2,100 people completed those surveys. 93% of the respondents indicated they would like to see the zoo expand. 80% indicated that they supported expansion on the Antelope Park Triangle. And this is significant, 47% said that parking was only sometimes adequate or not adequate at all when visiting the zoo, and parking has been a significant challenge to be resolved in this project. The zoo held open houses in March of 2015 and in May of 2016, and the master plan that is before you this evening represents an evaluation and a balancing of the various recommendations and advice that's been received through this process. Again, as Mr. Houston noted, the Planning Commission reviewed items 46 through 52 on October 28th, and they come to you with their recommendation for approval. One of the items I want to speak very specifically to this evening is a recommendation for modifications to the master plan for Woods Park. Woods Park is unique within the park system. It is the only park that has a master plan that is reviewed and approved by the City Council. It was established in the early 90s and it's been revised a number of times between then and now. The revisions that are before you this evening are really primarily about parking. I think as the City Council knows, when the Health Department went through its expansion about 10 years ago, there was a third floor built on the Health Department building. At that time, or the office wing of the Health Department building. At that time, it was unknown who the tenant of that space would be. There also was not parking built for that space. Really, it was deferred until the tenant was identified and a parking solution was identified associated with that. What we are proposing this evening is to add 30 parking spaces south of the existing Health Department employee parking. It would have access off of Rogers Memorial Drive. And the other thing that through consultations with the Woods Park Neighborhood Association and the Witherby Neighborhood Association, the recommendation is to consolidate an existing parking area in this location with those with this parking lot. So this parking lot in total would have about 45 spaces. That would then consolidate the green space in this area and open up additional green space. I think it's important to note that this is shared parking, that during the business hours, this would be Parks and Recreation staff parking. We'll have 30 staff who will be occupying the third floor of the office building at the Health Department. But importantly, this is also park parking. This is parking that would be available to park users on evenings and weekends. And you can tell from the Woods Park master plan for the Woods Park aerial photo that this area to the west and this area to the south are heavily used for a whole variety of activities and sports. And I can tell you that today, Rogers Memorial Drive gets heavily parked during evening and weekend hours. Certainly this parking lot that is located south of the Health Department clinic is available on evenings and weekends, but I think because it doesn't have direct connection to Rogers Memorial Drive, it doesn't get used much. And some of the advice and guidance that we've gotten through the consultation that we've been involved with is that by having a direct connection to Rogers Memorial Drive, hopefully that will eliminate some of the on-street parking that happens there. One of the other things that I would like to note is that this area where we are proposing to establish parking has historically been used for parking. A little harder to see, but this is a photo from 2005. This is the Health Department employee parking. The parking lot east of the building was under construction at that time, and there were 3 satellite parking areas that were associated with old use areas in the park. In working with the neighborhood residents at that time, there was a recommendation that once this parking was expanded and developed, that this parking lot go away. So we actually eliminated this parking lot just about 10 years ago. And so we are requesting the opportunity to essentially reestablish parking in that area of the park. We met with the Woods Park Neighborhood Association and the Witherby Neighborhood Association in October. As the City Council may know, the Witherby Neighborhood Association has expressed opposition to this plan because of the potential, or because of the impact on loss of green space. The Woods Park Neighborhood Association is supportive, but they have a number of conditions. They'd like to see some improvements to the park, including a walkway in this location, elimination of an old walkway in this location, that would occur in conjunction with the parking improvements. This would result in about 1/4 of an acre of parkland that would be, or green space that would be converted to parking. It would remain as parkland. It would remain as part of Woods Park. There is a precedent of Parks and Recreation staff parking being located in the park. If you've been to our current office at 2740 A Street, you know that our staff park in Antelope Park today. One of the other things I wanted to bring to the attention of the City Council is we've done an evaluation of parkland in the central portion of Lincoln. And over the past 15 years, nearly 47 acres of new parkland has been added in the central portion of Lincoln. A lot of that is associated with the Antelope Valley project, but certainly not all of it. We've tried to address areas where there are deficiencies within neighborhood parks or within deficiencies of neighborhood parkland within certain neighborhoods within the community. About 2.1 acres of land has been transferred from park use to other public projects. There was 1.4 acres of woods parkland that was converted as part of the Health Department expansion project, and then about 7/10 of an acre was transferred to Lincoln Public Schools and associated with the Elliott Elementary School playground and school grounds improvement project. I should also let you know this evening that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board voted 7-6 last Thursday evening in opposition to the revised Woods Park Master Plan. Since that time, I have had an opportunity to speak with a number of the members who voted in opposition, and essentially to a person, what they've told me is that they had a concern about the loss of green space. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have this evening.
City.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so you mentioned that there was going to be some restoration of green space, and at the same time, the re-putting, I guess you're going to put back in a parking space where one used to exist, parking lot. And so have you run that by the Witherby, the addition of the other space under the other organization's requests?
We have, yeah. We did have an opportunity to meet with the Witherby Neighborhood Association Board, and we laid out a number of alternatives, including the alternative that we're bringing before the City Council this evening. One option was that this parking lot would be a little bit smaller, and we would leave this parking lot in place. And actually, I think that in conversations with both the Witherby Neighborhood Association Board and the Woods Park Neighborhood Association Board, both seem to be in favor of the idea of consolidating the green space in this area and consolidating the parking in this area. But I would say that Witherby is opposed to conversion of that green space to parking.
They're still opposed?
They are.
Can you tell me, my previous concerns, I'm sure you know, have been encumbrances on various parklands. Are there any encumbrances that are going to require us to jump through federal hoops in order to make this happen?
It's a good question. We hope not, but Woods Park is not dedicated parkland. When the Woods family gave the gift that was used for acquisition of the land, it was given for municipal purposes, so we don't have dedicated parkland issues here. But there has been federal land and water conservation funds used a couple of different times in the development of the park. When the Health Department expanded, we actually did go through a conversion process. And the area that is occupied by a portion of the office building plus the parking to the east, that 1.4 acres, we went through the process of getting approval to convert that. We actually acquired 15 acres of parkland to replace that. We think that in consultation with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, that because this is parking that would be associated with administrative activities associated with the Parks and Recreation Department, essentially overseeing all of the parkland in Lincoln, and because it's shared parking associated with the park, that we won't have to go through a conversion process, but we are waiting to hear back from the Game and Parks Commission and the National Park Service on that topic.
Do you know when we'll know?
It's a good question. We have submitted all of the materials to them. We've asked that they expedite their review because of the timeliness of bringing these before. That is one of the reasons that we are requesting that the public hearing be held open on at least the the operating agreement and the construction and lease agreement, is to allow time to get for that review to be completed by the National Park Service. And hopefully we'll have the answer on this at that same time.
And the other, the one having to do with the this parking area is number 41, is that right?
It is, I don't have that in front of me.
The adjustment of parking lots? to accommodate?
It actually, and I apologize, I don't have it. It is 41, and I apologize. It
That's
is the approval of the revised master plan for Woods Park.
Okay. And don't you think it would be appropriate maybe to hold that open until we hear?
We certainly could, yes.
Thank you.
Carl?
Thank you, Lynn. A couple of questions. First of all, at the zoo location, what happens to the bike trail?
The trail remains as it is. Essentially, as this is laid out, there is no impact on the bike trail, so the Rock Island Trail remains as it is today.
At one point, there was some concern about the trail running through a new parking lot on the south side of A. Does that happen with this plan?
It does not. One of the versions of the master plan looked at this parking area that's located in the southwest corner of the triangle was actually going to be located over 2 water reservoirs. And when the parking was located in this position, a couple things happened. One, there was a roadway connection that crossed the Rock Island Trail, and so there was concern about the conflict between trail users and that drive. And then there was also a very long pedestrian bridge that extended essentially from that parking lot along the trail, crossed A Street, and then at that time, the zoo entrance was about in this position. It's been moved over at this point.
All right, thanks. Then my next questions are about the relocation of Parks and Rec at Woods Park. So parking is an issue for activities at the park. Swimming events. I have a colleague I work with who helps to run the midget football program there, and their games are late afternoon, evenings, and they're some of the people that are parking there on the road, and so this will be of benefit to them. But they also talk about the condition of the ground, and the fields aren't in the best of shape. So I'm a little interested in maybe the long term of what we can do to improve those playing fields at Woods Park, because quite honestly, Woods Park is really important to the city and the core neighborhoods of the city, and they utilize this park, and particularly some low-income kids that, don't have access to being able to go out in the parks in the fringes of town. This is where they need to go, and so what can we do to make this better for them?
That's a great question. As you look at the aerial photo, you can see that the play fields, both in these locations, are very worn. They get used starting in the spring as soon as the snow's off the ground, and they continue to be used all through the fall. One of the things that we would like to accomplish, that's actually included in our capital improvement program, is to establish an irrigation well and irrigate those fields. That would allow us to keep the turf in much better condition than it is today. Presently, there just isn't any way to stay ahead of the amount of use and keep good quality turf on those play fields. So I think the ability to get an irrigation system in place will make a significant impact on the quality of the surfaces that people play on there.
I'm pleased to hear you say quality. I think a lot of times we get hung up about quantity of park space, and John talks a lot about that. And certainly parks are important to have, but what do we put there? What's the quality of what's there? So would encourage us to see what we can do to improve that.
Absolutely.
Jane?
Lynn, in your proposal, the area that you have highlighted in green, that is the parking lot that you would like to remove and restore the green space in exchange for the additional parking stalls. What is the net increase in parking stalls that you will be adding?
It's a total net increase of 30 spaces. Today, I think there's 14 spaces here. We would build, I think, either 44 or 45 spaces here. So we're adding 30 spaces would be new beyond what's in the park today.
And that exceeds the number of personnel, correct, that would be in the offices?
It's essentially a one-for-one. We will be bringing 30 staff to the third floor space.
And then talk a little bit about what would happen to that area. It will be restored, but it'll be used for just another open playing field, or?
It could potentially be, and we've had some discussions about that. Right now, the Woods Park Master Plan shows that this area could be used for community gardens or some other activity. This area on the north side of Rogers Memorial Drive is in long grass maintenance at this point. That used to be the activity area in the park. There used to be a playground in this location. There was a shelter in about this location. And then there is a building that was a public restroom in this location. All of those activities have been moved to locations more central in the park. And so we continue to look for a future use for this area. It is big enough that it could be a playfield in the future. It would be a good location for a community garden or that kind of activity as well, we think.
Okay, thank you.
Cindy?
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't ask all my questions before. I'm just wanting to be clear on exactly which items we're being asked to hold the hearing open on. Is it 42 and 44, those two agreements?
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney, given the fact that all of these items are so closely interrelated, we would suggest the council hold open hearing on all of the items.
And then hear them all at once like we're doing tonight?
Exactly, if necessary.
Okay. I like that idea.
Thanks for the easy button.
Now, Sonny, you have that tape recorded, so we just play that next week. Okay, thank you.
Have questions for Lynn? Okay, I have just a few. We've heard some concerns from community members, one of which had to do with the other garden spaces on the zoo property. And we've had an assurance tonight from Mr. Houston about those parcels, the gardens being outside the premises of the zoo. Can you confirm that, and can you speak to what the lease agreement says about the ability to reduce that green space in the future?
Yeah, I think as Mr. Houston said, the lease area that would be established for a 50-year period does not include the Cascade Fountain, the strolling garden, the rose garden, this lawn area that is, thanks Tom, that is south of the rose garden. It also doesn't include the front lawn of the Ager building. There's a 50-foot buffer along 27th Street and then a 15-foot buffer along A Street. All of that is excluded outside of the lease area and will continue to be under Parks and Recreation, operation and maintenance. One of the things that this plan does is establish some additional public parking that would be available for the public gardens that are on the triangle as well as sunken gardens. And then we are working collaboratively with the zoo to develop a landscape buffer along the east edge of the garden as well as to heavily landscape this area on the east side of the parking lot.
I'm glad you brought up buffers, because that was the next question I had, was about landscaping requirements. Can you explain where landscaping is required throughout the project to help mitigate change?
Absolutely. There is a 50-foot landscape buffer between the east edge of 27th Street and the parking lot. As people know that area, there are a number of large evergreens in that area, and that preserves all of the large evergreens in that area and provides an opportunity to plant additional evergreens. Along A Street, there would be a 15-foot heavily landscaped and bermed buffer. There's really only one tree in that area that likely would remain, but that gives us a chance to establish a brand new landscape planting there that will provide screening from A Street. And then one additional feature is this is a fountain basin ring that is called, it was from the Thompson Fountain. It was at 11th and J Street. It spent an awful lot of its life on the triangle and in the zoo. It's been in storage in Wilderness Park for a number of years. We're bringing that granite ring back, and that will also be landscaped as a landscape feature in front of the Ager building as well.
And because the setback is being reduced along A Street, what can the neighbors to the south expect in terms of screening from the parking lot? You said it's, gives you an opportunity to design something new. Can you help us understand what they can expect?
Absolutely, yeah. The intent there is to do a berm to raise the height that'll provide a little bit of screening protection from the noses of those vehicles that are parked there, or vehicles that are parked in that area. And then we intend to establish 100% screening. And it will be it will be an irrigated area, so landscaping should establish very quickly and grow quickly as well. And the intent is to select plant materials so that we get a good screen as quickly as possible.
Okay. And in the agreement, one of the agreements, I noticed it said that the screening requirements have to be enforced to the city's satisfaction. Is there more specific detail for the folks who have to comply with that so that there's a little more less ambiguity? Or can you speak to that at all?
I can. We've talked about this being 100% screen at maturity, so that it's a solid opaque screen of plant material. This area along 27th Street will continue to be under Parks and Recreation management. So we'll have the ability to continue to infill there, and the intent there is to also maintain a solid evergreen screen on a continual basis.
And are there
So really,
clear height requirements, or is that spelled out, I guess?
the height requirement I don't think is spelled out, but the intent is that on both of those frontages that we essentially have 100% screening.
All right. And then we've also had questions about things that have to move, aside from your department, Lady Liberty and the donor panels. Can you speak to that item in this operating agreement? It sounded like, or one of the agreements, it sounded like that location has not been determined yet. Do you have a timeline for that?
We actually do. The Lady Liberty is located in this plaza area just to the east of the Ager building. We've worked with the Veterans Memorial Garden Advisory Council, and the recommendation is that Lady Liberty go to the Veterans Garden and would be placed in the center of the star bed there. There's a provision in the agreement that the zoo would provide up to $15,000 for the relocation expenses to build an appropriate base for that statue, and then also lighting. And actually, if you drive by today, Lady Liberty has been taken down. We're going to get it refurbished before it goes to the Veterans Garden. The donor panels, the Lincoln Parks Foundation donor panels that are associated with Liberty Plaza, the intent is to put those into storage at this point, and then we'll hold on to those until we've got a project where it's appropriate to incorporate those granite panels into that project in the future. We didn't have any ideas for where to place them on a temporary basis, and we thought it was better just put them into storage, and then when we have an opportunity in the future to incorporate them into the design of a future public space, we would do that.
So they don't need to be with Lady Liberty? They're not actually related? They're just, in general, Parks Foundation donors?
That's correct. That's correct.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
On that particular item, I thought like the Elks and some others in Vince Calera the years really did quite an effort to refurbish Lady Liberty at that time, and that those were associated with that.
There is a panel associated with that. That project, I think, happened in 1983, if I remember right, and there were a number of donors associated with that. At this point, we had thought that we would hold on to that plaque because it was really the entire plaza, including Lady Liberty, and we thought we would hold on to that, but we could investigate another option for that.
Mr. Calera put quite a bit of effort. I'm sure some of the people in the room remember his efforts then, and was a good community citizen. So.
And then lastly, about Ager Place Center, early on in this process, there were concerns about that building, and I know there's been a lot of care and attention on the preserving it, providing historical landmark status, and integrating it into the design of the new zoo, and that's very nice. Currently, it allows for a pretty low-cost play space for children, about 29,000 visitors in 2014, according to Parks Foundation. Where can children play indoors in the winter going forward, now that this facility will no longer be available through the Parks and Rec Department? Do you have alternative recommendations for families?
You know, one of the things that I think the vision for the future of the Ager building is that it be kind of a consolidation of prior uses. For many years, it was an indoor zoo building, and a lot of Lincoln residents will remember that. Since 1995, it's been an indoor playground, and the idea is to kind of consolidate those two, so there will be indoor animal exhibits and opportunities for interaction, but there will be opportunities also for play and for programming. And so the zoo will provide a brand new opportunity in that building that doesn't exist today. Some other things have happened in Lincoln since the indoor playground was developed, is we have a couple of private businesses who now operate or offer those kinds of programs. We have one pretty unique program in that space. We have a preschool program for children with developmental disabilities, and we'll be relocating that program to Calvert Recreation Center, so that program will continue. It's an outdoor program during the summer. They spend time at pools and that kind of thing. And then when it goes back inside in the winter, it'll actually go to Calvert instead of this location.
But just another historical perspective, one of our former colleagues, Jerry Shoecraft, was very instrumental in getting the Ager building into that indoor playground. So a lot of past works.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I suspect there are many other people who'd like to testify on this item. Please come forward.
I'm Stacy Hageman with the Planning Department, and I am going to talk about item 52, the change of zone 16022 for the landmark designation of the Ager Building. So the site that we included in the landmark designation surrounds the building located here and extends out to 27th Street to capture that landscaping in front of the building. The Antelope Park Zoo Aviary Building is the name. It's more commonly known as the Chet Ager Building. The rectangular limestone building is located at the terminus of B Street here. Just east of 27th, and it's south of the zoo's existing parking lot. And then, like I said, the large green space to the west of the building was included in the landmark designation. The cornerstone recognizes the 1936 construction and contributes and the contributions of FDR's New Deal program Works Progress Administration, or WPA, which employed thousands of people on recreation projects. WPA employed men to quarry, haul, and cut limestone from roca to use in the building's construction. And as a further economic measure, the Parks Department also purchased a portable sawmill where they milled lumber from thousands of trees that died as a result of the drought in city parks and public rights-of-way. The building was designed by prominent Lincoln architects Davis and Wilson. The primary symmetrical facade faces 27th Street. The taller portion of the building includes an arched entrance in the center, which is flanked by two windows on either side that have animal-themed medallions above them. The Ager Building was built as a year-round facility for the Antelope Park Zoo. It's designed around this central aviary that had a waterfall-fed pond and a skylight above it. Surrounding the aviary were animal cages of varying sizes, with the smallest along the south wall, medium-sized cages along the north, and on the east wall there were larger cages that were both inside and outside. And on the west, it was office space. This is a 1940s postcard view of what the interior of the zoo looked like. And the zoo's plans for expansion include the Ager Building, essentially, as Lynn said, returning it to its original use as a year-round animal exhibit. And in order to provide access to their parking lot on the south, the drive is being proposed to cross in front of the Ager Building. There's preservation guidelines that go along with the landmark designation, and they identify that landscaped area between the building and the street, really to maintain an unobstructed view from 27th Street. And you can see in this plan the circular feature, which Lynn identified as the Thompson Fountain Ring. And here's a postcard image of the fountain ring when it was originally located in 11th and J Street intersection. But the fountain has a long history of use in Antelope Park and at the zoo itself. And this ring then would be incorporated with this as a landscape feature with low landscape to still provide a view from 27th Street of the building. So these plans all went to Historic Preservation Commission along with the landmark designation and the preservation guidelines, who recommended the approval to Planning Commission.
Any questions? Great, thank you. Right. We'll now take testimony from those who'd like to speak in favor or... Great. And if there are a lot of you, we could ask two at a time to come down, and while one speaks, one can fill out the form, and we'll keep things moving tonight. You know, it's a late night. Hi.
Deb Andrews, 1235 A Street. I'm neutral on this project. I'm here this evening because I'm concerned about how financing and funding has been presented with no direct city funding required. I'm concerned the public's not being provided all the information about finance. Previously, the zoo admissions fee was taxed. That revenue was split between the city and the state. The law was changed. The zoo no longer collects a tax on its admission fee. However, this did not result in a reduction of the admission fee. The zoo retains the revenue which previously had gone to the city and state. On every admission to the zoo, taxpayers are on the hook to make up the shortfall the city and state no longer receive from the zoo. The end result is the citizen pays twice. They pay the same price for admission as they did when the tax was included, and now make up the shortfall in city and state revenues on behalf of the zoo. Lobbyists are very effective at representing the city and its favored businesses and organizations. Unfortunately, often the outcome of that legislation is a direct hit on the taxpayer who foots the bill for all of it. This should be clarified when statements are made about sources of funding. And I have a graph, if you could show this, that I created from information from the State and Local Finance Lab. And you can see the very small bar on this graph is the increase in household income in Lincoln in the last 10 years. It's the smallest bar. On the very right-hand side, the bonded indebtedness has gone up 118%, while income only went up 10%. The very small box is differentiated because it's a 15-year increase. That's the certificate of participation bonding that we don't have a vote on. That's gone up 2,886%. So it's not just the zoo that's increasing our burden. It's a big picture, and I ask you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
All righty. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, distinguished city council members. My name is Greg Dynick, 8235 Dundee Drive here in Lincoln. I'm the board chair of the Lincoln Children's Zoo, and I've come here tonight to speak in favor of approving the plans under consideration and the various resolutions that will be necessary to implement it. The zoo has, since its incorporation, been a product of a special partnership between the city of Lincoln and motivated citizens who wanted to build an environment where children and adults alike could encounter nature in an up-close and personal fashion. It is a park. It's a park in the core of the city. It was established on June 5th, 1961 through the occupancy and use of the land being given to the city of Lincoln Children's Zoo through city ordinance, which you all know. What you might not remember is that William Dobler, the editor of the Lincoln Star that evening, wrote, "We won't settle. Lincoln Children's Zoo will be the nation's finest." That was a sentiment echoing the mission that Arnett Folsom articulated in putting the zoo together, that it would be a premier tourist attraction right here in the middle of Lincoln. That zoo took 5 years construction, volunteer labor, and persistent fundraising before the zoo was opened in 1965. Since that time, more than 6 million visitors have passed through the gates to join countless others in enjoying what the zoo offers. In short, the proposals that you are considering tonight are a fulfillment of the vision of city leaders established more than 50 years ago to offer a premier nature experience right in the heart of city for Lincoln and the region. That core mission is a part of our board and all of the activities we've engaged in to provide that close interaction with nature for children and adults alike. To do so, the board's activities have been focused on providing interactions in a very close space. For those of you who operate in retail, you might understand this as sales per square foot. We're trying to get the most out of what we have, and we've done a fine job. Earlier tonight, Tom mentioned that we had over 218,000 visitors in 2015. That amounted to the highest usage of zoo land as based by visitors per acre in the nation. Put another way, we're getting the most out of what we have. And in doing so, we've served as stewards and conservationists for zoo animal and citizens alike. John would be able to tell you that there are a number of opportunities to be able to come and reflect inside the city center under the shade of trees, and that you can see animals while also watching your children running up and down the dirt path and the dirt piles that are built within. As John might tell you, that is at least one of my children's favorite attraction in the zoo, and their clothes bear that out. I'm concluding my 5th year on the zoo board. For the better part of 4 years, we have researched and evaluated how to appropriately expand the zoo's ability to provide this close interaction with neighbor. As all of you will know, and do know because of your activities, this has required countless meetings and countless iterations of a master plan, looking for something that will fit a multitude of different needs and a multitude of different constituents' view of how that should work. What you probably do not know is that our Children's Zoo Board has endorsed this project repeatedly with a unanimous expression of approval in our authorizing resolution. You do know that. Perhaps you don't know that our board has also, and just as telling, expressed its support of the expansion financially through universal private donations from every single board member. That support may sound surprising, but I believe it's only a natural outgrowth of the tremendous goodwill and support the zoo includes. Was that 4 minutes? Thank you. Tom mentioned the outreach and the number of low-income visitors we provide. We had community volunteers offer over 9,000 hours of their time last year. We had educational programs that interacted with 1,900 students outside of the zoo school. We gave more than 20,000 low-income families zoo passes, and through it all, we saw an increased attendance of 32%, making it the 3rd most visited arts and cultural attraction in Nebraska. Finally, the economic impact. While Tom touched on the number of visitors and what it means to the city, I would point out that our budget has increased 87% over the last 5 years. And every year, the zoo raises privately $500,000 of support. And despite concerns that citizens rightly have about how we spend our money, the zoo receives no financial support from the city ongoing, something that only 2% of AZA-accredited zoos maintain. With that, council members, this is a project that's years in the making. It fulfills a long-term mission of natural interactions, enjoys widespread approval, and serves a valuable economic growth impetus. I ask you to thoughtfully consider and then execute on approving this plan. I'd take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for your time. My name is Emily Villa. I live at 3525 Hillside Circle. I was asked to speak to you today on behalf of zoo school students, past, present, and future, mothers and children across Nebraska who would benefit from the expansion of the zoo and a permanent home for the zoo school. And I hope I do all of them justice because that's a big crowd. As I said, my name is Emily Villa. I'm actually a Hayden. I was born and raised in Lincoln. Some of you may know my dad, who's a city traffic engineer for a number of years, and then he went to the private sector. My mom was a private school teacher who moved to the public schools to teach at Northeast, so I know a lot about the interaction between public and private entities in the city, and I grew up with a lot of discussions about that. In 1987, I was blessed to be a part of the founding class of the Science Focus program at the zoo, now Zoo School, as we like to call it. I had been a nature nut and an animal lover all of my life, so this was a perfect fit. When my best friend told me that there would be a school at the zoo, we thought we were dreaming. But the collaboration between Lincoln Public Schools and the zoo, John Chapo, Denny Van Horn, and our phenomenal teachers that we belovedly called Jim, Dee, Jane, and Deb, was just absolutely life-changing for many of us. They encouraged us to think outside of the textbook, to integrate science and history, psychology, literature, into our own research and our own study. And that kind of innovation in education needs to be encouraged, modeled to other cities, and given a permanent place in the future of the zoo. As students of the zoo, we also took the opportunity to give back to the community, which is a great opportunity for us. We hosted events like Bug Bash at the zoo, and we brought Lincoln Public School kids into the zoo, and we were the teachers. We took them through all kinds of exhibits. We wrote grants and helped to landscape the zoo, which is a great learning opportunity. We also took zoo animals on field trips into the schools in the winter months so that the kids in the schools would get to see the animals. And we, for many of us, this was the first opportunity to be the teacher. It also was a seed for a lot of our graduates to become teachers themselves across the country and to take that model of learning outside of a textbook to cities across the country. And I think that's a great legacy for the zoo. Some of our graduates have gone on to research as far away as Antarctica and the Andro Project. Others have brought sustainable agriculture back to Lincoln. You might know Robinette Farms, which was founded by one of our graduates, Chloe Deagle. And they provide locally sourced food to people all over Lincoln, which is really attractive to our city. Although I didn't become a veterinarian or a zookeeper like I dreamed of being, I am now the mother of 9 very inquisitive little children, ages 13 down to 15 months, and my days now probably do resemble a zookeeper's in many respects, more than I would like to admit sometimes. But one of the most rewarding parts of being a parent, as I'm sure many of you know, is just rediscovering the world alongside a child, and their innocence and wonder never ceases to astound me. My husband and I have taken our kids to the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Rockies, Yellowstone, Chicago museums, the Boston Aquarium, safaris in Texas, all over the place, which is very hard and very expensive. But our favorite place to encounter animals up close and personal is still the Lincoln Children's Zoo. And I say that with a lot of meaning. And it's a lot easier than driving 22 hours with 11 people in a van. So for children in this state who don't have that opportunity to travel and see the world, this zoo brings the world to them, and they need that opportunity. It's a really big deal for kids who are growing up in such a technological world to have a real interaction with an animal and nature and fresh air. They're so connected to devices, and they need to be connected to the natural world. Excuse me. I really believe that firsthand encounter with nature sparks their imagination, and it encourages them to be creative, to take ownership of their own life and their own education. It reinvigorates their innocence and wonder. Lastly, I think Lincoln has made a great reputation for itself as the Silicon Prairie, and we're getting a lot of very tech-savvy millennials to our city, but they are also very green, and they're very aware of what they want their kids to be aware of in the world. The Arbor Day Nature Explore classrooms, Prairie Hill, Pioneers Park Preschool, and our own zoo school, I think, speak to that desire for these parents, that they want their kids to be connected to the world. They want them to know the value of the resources that they're consuming. They want them to have that wonder about the world. So I think expanding our zoo in scale, having year-round access, more access for field trips for our school kids, sanity-saving walks for moms of preschool kids in the middle of the winter would just be a phenomenal collaborative effort between the city and the zoo as a private entity and all of us as community members. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Questions? I want to know what it's like to raise 9 kids.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Rosina Paolini. I reside at 1850 Dakota. So I used to live at 26th and C, and we got the ones with the really big feathers on our garage roof. My brain went south.
Peacocks.
Thank you. Males, very loud 5 a.m. They made it back home. But anyway, living at that area, though, for 15 years, it just made me wonder about a couple of things that unless you lived next door to the zoo, you might not think about it. So I wondered about when the zoo is expanding and continuing to expand, how that works in a tight, well-established neighborhood where there are basically, small streets, lots of kids playing, the increase in traffic, the increase in, even though you've got lots of overflow parking and have through the years, cars parked on both sides of the streets, kids still playing in that area, just how that affects the neighborhoods, how that affects the children who want to play outside, who maybe don't get to go to the zoo or the boo at the zoo or the whatever, because you are in the core neighborhood. And then I kind of wondered about the demolition and displacement of the Lincoln Parks Foundation and the Parks and Recs Administration building, mostly because that's like their showcase. They take the donors outside. You've got the Rose Garden, you've got Sunken Gardens across the street, and we get donations. And I don't know how that will affect donations to be over at Woods Park where you're on the third floor story and you can't just walk them right out into this glorious park. Those are just some questions that I had for myself and was wondering about. Just food for thought, but thank you. And the zoo is a wonderful place. I've taken nieces, nephews, went myself, had peacocks on my garage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, if you had questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joel Sartori. I live in Lincoln, 2733 Sheridan Boulevard. I spent a lot of time in zoos for a National Geographic photo arc, which has taken me to 320 zoos around the world so far. And I can tell you firsthand that the Lincoln Zoo is as good as any of them I go to. I mean, especially for its size. I think of it as small but mighty. But I think with this expansion, we won't be thinking of it as small anymore. We'll be thinking of it in a big way, in a way that really offers so much more to this city. What Emily was saying about the fact that most kids now are disconnected from nature. Zoos are often the only place where they can actually see and smell and hear and sometimes touch animals other than dogs or cats. It's really critical if we want to keep some connection to nature to have a good, healthy, thriving zoo. And we're really on the cusp of something big here. Everybody's super excited about the possibility of getting giraffes without having to go to Omaha. I'm too. Zoos are arcs now, actually, as well. And this zoo's been very successful in breeding critically endangered species, and they share genetic material with other AZA-accredited zoos, and that's tremendous. I've looked over the site plan as well many times. I'm a zoo trustee, and it's sound and it's well thought out. I can just tell you this, that we're on the cusp of something really great here with this zoo, and it's kind of a no-brainer since it's $89 for your whole family for a year. That's just nothing. I mean, that is nothing. That's the cost of dinner for a large family. So I would wholeheartedly suggest that you adopt this. I think it's a very excellent plan, and I'm really proud to be associated with this zoo.
Thank you.
And my name is Nick Cusick, 6400 West Shore Drive here in Lincoln. I've had the privilege over the past handful of years, going back at least till 2014, but honestly a couple of years prior to that, visiting with a wide variety of constituencies, including many of you, about this potential expansion. In reality, my activity goes back to 2008 when I was the board chair of the zoo, and there was conversation even at that time about the possibility of what's our next expansion and where do we go. I think we all know that Lincoln has grown a lot in the 51 years that the Lincoln Children's Zoo has been in existence. We've grown within the zoo and the boundaries that we currently occupy, and I think like all things in life, including cities and the amenities for cities, it's imperative that we continue to keep moving forward. One of the things that was not mentioned when I believe it was Tom and maybe somebody else mentioned the survey that was done by the zoo in cooperation with Lincoln Parks and Recs. One of the things that they did not say was that there was a lot of comment in those 2,000 plus, I think it was 2,400 surveys, about making sure we maintain the Lincoln Children's Zoo as a small and intimate place. They liked expansion. I think 93%, I think, was the number that wanted us to expand. But they said, keep it small, keep it where Emily and her kids can come and wander and have a great time, and that's certainly our intention. We got a great zoo 50 miles down the road, Lincoln, or the Henry Doorly Zoo, and we don't want to be the Henry Doorly Zoo. We want to be Lincoln Children's Zoo. So I would ask you to keep that in mind. Throughout the process, there's obviously been, like in all projects, a lot of competing priorities from various advisory groups, various city departments, the public, the various neighborhoods, and we certainly understand those. And I think the program that we're bringing forward today, the project that we're bringing forward today for ultimate approval, is the result of all that input. And we have a dramatically better project than we had 6 months ago, which was dramatically better than the project we had 6 months prior and 6 months prior and in 2008. So I think that's part of the benefit of getting public input, even when they don't all agree with your first attempts. One of the things I do think there is almost unanimous agreement with is that the Lincoln Children's Zoo is a gem in the city of Lincoln, and there is almost unanimous support for the expansion of the zoo, depending on which priorities, how you want to deal with all the various competing priorities. I guess the last thing that I would want to mention is that as I've attempted as a volunteer to navigate the process of getting to today and December 5th potential vote, et cetera, is that we don't want anything to happen on a 4-3 vote or a 5-2 vote or whatever. The Lincoln Public School Board voted unanimously 7-0 for their support of the Lincoln Zoo School expansion. The Lancaster County Board voted unanimously for the Visitor Improvement Fund contribution to our plan. I would ask you, as you go forward, as you deliberate over the next couple of weeks and you get more information on some of the outstanding details, that you consider supporting this great project unanimously. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
I just have a question. I know you were involved with LPS, and there's information in our packet about the changes to the zoo school. Can you briefly touch on the expansion and how you see that as an improvement?
Yeah, sure. As Emily indicated, the zoo school was actually established in 1997. She might have said 87, and I don't think she's that old. So, but I think it was 1997. Am I right or wrong? It wasn't. Oh, okay. Maybe you said 97, and I'm old, so I maybe misunderstood. But it was established in two used portables that were moved into the zoo property that it gets from the city, and they were used and refurbished at that time. That was 1997. I had a daughter who was killed in a car accident along with her boyfriend. They were both friends of Emily's, and were killed in a car accident. They were zoo school students, and we built a building that now occupies a fair number of the zoo school class activities. I think 2 classrooms plus a science lab, in addition to the 2 portables. Their current capacity is somewhere in the 100 to 115 students. They're bursting at the seams. They have a waiting list. This gives them a permanent home for the first time in the 20 years. I think it was an experiment in 1997. What would a focused high school look like? And I think that experiment has been expanded. There are other focus programs now, including the latest career academies. So this gives them a permanent home, plus allows for some growth of that program. It will always be a small, intimate community of learners, like it has been throughout its history. But I think this allows them to grow maybe up to 200 or 225 students in a permanent home. It allows us to get rid of the portables that are sitting on a high-pressure water line, which Public Works would love to get out of there. So. Anything else? Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Are there others who'd like to testify on this item? If so, please come down. No? Any opposed who'd like to speak?
My name is Walter Canny. I'm I'm John's neighbor. I live at 2111 South 66th Street in Lincoln. I would certainly support what I've seen in the landmark designation for the Ager building. And I'd also say that we have a wonderful children's zoo. Moved here in 1971 with 4 children. They enjoyed it. Later years, some grandchildren visit. That is the children's zoo as it is now. Does that give me an extra 5 minutes? Because I'm actually opposing the expansion. I thought that might work.
Nice try.
My particular concern is the Rose Garden principally, but I also think I can wear a community hat and be objective. I have a significant financial and emotional investment in the Rose Garden. When it was being rebuilt in 2007, I funded the Joy Fountain. If anyone's ever walked through there, the plaque says in honor of, not in memory of. My wife was fighting ovarian cancer, and she could enjoy it at least for the next 2.5 years. We lost her a little later. Last year I funded 4 new benches in the south gazebo, which there were 4 open spots that they apparently had run out of funding, and then with the Parks Foundation, we got a specially designed bench, and if you've never seen them, they're beautiful. Temco did it. That's my personal interest. But when I put on my community hat, as I dressed to Mr. Chapo, to the Zoo Foundation, I appeared in a couple of meetings. When I look at the triangle as it now exists, if you're a commuter from the south, it really begins the ambience of the inner city. The setback, the trees, the open spaces, the green belt, and now it tying with the Antelope Valley Project and soon the telephone project. It's really the nicest gateway to Lincoln. The plan, as it was first announced, and I would suggest that Mr. Johnson's mention of all of the openness is more or less a list of private or more of a stealth approach to planning. There was a slightly advertised open house. I attended. The first plan that was shown would have boxed the corner of A Street and 27th Street and back around. It was rumored that the giraffe feeding thing was one of the goals. I'm glad Mr. Sotoro finally confirmed that giraffes are a goal. He's a trustee. I asked Mr. Chapo directly at least twice, in one meeting, once in another, if that was part of the large animals they sought. He still has not answered publicly to anyone that I know of what they intend to house. But a male giraffe can grow to 17 feet. So even though the Rose Garden supposedly is preserved, that might just mean preserved for now. And the enclosures somewhere will have to be significantly high, and I believe depreciate significantly the ambience of the area. The green space significantly reduced. Parking will be virtually right up against the Rose Garden, for instance. Large animals make larger noises, larger deposits, none of which would be, in my opinion, great for the area. So for those reasons, I think I'm wearing a public hat. when I think it depreciates the value and beauty of the triangle. In the survey they did, I chuckled a bit. It had 3 questions like, have you used the green space? What for and how often? That's paraphrase maybe. And if I commuted from South Lincoln, I would say twice a day for 250 days a year, because green space isn't just for croquet or picnics. It's the openness in the core of the city that's important. Love the Children's Zoo, as is. Deep concern that the expansion isn't at least a visual play plus for the city of Lincoln. And it appears that all of the wheels are greased, but I really don't think it's good. What do we need large animals in small spaces for? Those are my comments.
Thank you. Are there any other folks who'd like to testify tonight before we move on? Okay. All right. Are there any further comments that the applicant would like to make? Okay. Any further staff questions? All right. Sonia, please take us through the agenda then.
That will conclude our public hearing. Next would be the ordinances. Oh. We can. For all of those that are here for the council meeting, there are parking tickets at the front desk of this building to allow you to get out of the parking lot to the north of our building here. Feel free to grab those. As I was stating, this does end our public hearing. Ordinances third reading and related resolutions, we have none. And we can move on to our voting session.
Okay, can you start with the public hearing resolutions? We'll start with voting on those.
Item 30, amending the fiscal year 16-17 CIP to authorize and appropriate the $1,700,000 in TIF funds for the Haymarket Street and Streetscape project introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Carl. Discussion. John, then Cindy.
And ironically, I'm going to abstain. I don't really have any personal interest, but I've got adjacent buildings in the Haymarket, so I'll just abstain from voting.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm just disappointed this wasn't in the CIP. I don't think it was unforeseen, and so I'm disappointed that it wasn't in our budget. I understand the importance for keeping the area certainly safe, and I myself have tripped on a sidewalk in the Haymarket and dropped all of my beautiful leftover Vincenzo's lunch. So that was disappointing, but I just wish that we would have seen this just several months ago. It clearly is not a brand-new problem, so I just wanted to voice that.
Trent.
While I'd like to see the district end early and these funds go back into general fund, I think it's appropriate in this case. When you have development in an area, those trucks really, really impact roads in a district like this. And I think this is just part of the redevelopment process is rehabbing the infrastructure that's there. I'm a little concerned about the interfund borrowing and that was brought up. I think we're seeing a little bit more of that coming forward, but I think this is an important project to get some infrastructure taken care of down in the Haymarket, and I'll support it. And then hopefully in 2021, when it rolls off, we can get this area back on the tax rolls completely as a redeveloped project. Thank you.
All right, please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 31, adopting the Lincoln Electric System rate schedules to become effective January 1st, 2017.
All right, Jeff has approached.
Yes.
Did you need to?
Yes, Jeff Patrick, City Attorney, I apologize. These two items should have been on here for vote on December 5th.
Right.
That's what was intended by LES. And so, since it wasn't on the agenda for December 5th vote, I'd ask for a motion to place this on the agenda just for a vote on December 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Roy, seconded by Trent. Probably need any discussion on this? Okay, please call.
We're voting on the motion, correct?
The motion to delay the vote to December 5th.
Okay.
Correct?
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylord Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Jeff?
That was just for, I only read 31, but can we accept the vote for both?
The motion is, you said those and I said so moved, so that's
That was the
both of
intent.
those. That's the intent.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Item 33 would be claims, accepting the report of new and pending claims against the city and approving disposition of claims set forth for the period of October 16 through the 31st, 2016, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded by Jane. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Better to have no one come in on claims.
Nice.
Resolutions first readings are item 53 through 61. And then ordinances first reading is from item 62 through 65. Nothing on our pending list date certain, and no items on our pending list.
Seeing no one come forward for open mic.
You know,
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's make sure.
Yeah, thank
Do
you.
we
I
have-
was looking at some, yes, seeing no one coming forward, and you outlasted this, a very lengthy meeting, Madam Chair.
I think we need to, I'm sorry, I think we need to just clarify, it is open mic night, so that in case somebody is here who wants to
okay.
speak, and then you guys can arm wrestle who gets to say it.
I didn't see them racing forward.
I move adjournment.
Well, no, you have to wish happy Thanksgiving and.
Happy Thanksgiving,
say we-
everything, yeah.
We'll see you on December 5th.
Gonna be Thanksgiving before.
Right.
Okay.
I'm
Do
not
we
sure
have
who
a-
moved or seconded that.
Second.
You seconded it?
Moved by Roy and seconded by Trent.
Oh, golly. I'm getting respect around.
All right, let's call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
No.